Ooh, my brother's comic! The Adventures of Castle Mill. Whoa! Spider-Man! It's Captain America! Silver Surfer! Whoa, She-Hulk!
Hey, twerp! You better not be in my... Mom, he's in my comics again! Marvel superhero sand, pills, and shovels. One included with every Castle Mill. Captain America, Silver Surfer, Spider-Man, and She-Hulk. You can collect a different one each week at White Castle.
Emergency. Batman speaking. Warning all of you to brace yourselves for big news.
The biggest.
Tell them, Robin.
Holy superlatives, Batman! It's really exciting. Soon, very soon, Batman and I will be batapulting right out of your TV sets and onto your theater screens.
That's right, Robin. Our first full-length motion picture feature in color opens a whole new world of thrills. The big screen gives us more space on land, sea, and in the air to challenge the most bataclysmic collection of super criminals that ever plotted to take over the world.
Number one, the Riddler. Question: who's going to make the feathers fly and knock Batman and Robin out of the sky? Number two, the Joker. Have you heard this one? It'll kill you, Batman. Number three, the Penguin.
There are two eggs this wily bird is going to scramble, Batman and Robin.
Number four, the Catwoman.
Oh, you're going to see the perfect crime when I get Batman in my claws.
And that's just a sample of the exciting exploits ahead in our first feature motion picture.
Holy memoranda, folks. Make a note not to miss it.
Good thinking, Robin.
Hey! It's Podblast time. Welcome, everybody.
This ain't just a show. It's a time machine. Buckle up. Pop culture fans. You're about to blast back with jazz. He's got the clips, got the knowledge, got the spark. Digging through the past, lighting up the dark. 16 millimeter film, vintage frames, toys and trivia, retro games, comic books, oh, they're his thing. Bringing back the joy that nostalgia brings. Blast back, rewind that track. Saturday morning in a Podblast flash. Famous deaths, iconic scenes, laughs and legends from your childhood dreams. Now flip the switch, take it slow. We're going back to the golden glow. Grab your snacks, press play, don't miss your chance. It's a blast from the past with your host, Chance.
That's right. It's Podblast time. Hope you all had a really good Thanksgiving. And I want to say hey to the chat before we get started. We're finally going to talk about comic books again. I want to say hey to Tracy Rothmeyer. She's watching down in Florida. Always nice to see you, Tracy. She said, I just ordered a ton of Chinese food. No more turkey for me. I understand that. Kay Moonen, also in Florida, says, nice opening, Chance. Thank you very much. Hey to Joe Gutfeld in New York State asking, how was your Thanksgiving? And oh my gosh, we have a super chat from Tracy. Thank you so much. You are so kind. And I'm going to pay it back to you in kind. You'll see, Tracy, that's much too generous. Let's leave that on the screen for a little while. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. I want to ask the audience, is my sound a little too low? I did some adjustments with my producer this afternoon, and I want to make sure you can hear me. So please let me know, is my audio too low, or is it too high, or is it just right? And thanks again, Tracy. That is so sweet of you. I really appreciate that kind donation. And hello to Skeleton. I think you're across the pond over in jolly old England, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. And then Mikey was here earlier. Mikey's under the weather. He's not going to be here today, but he'll be back next time. Next time, going to have a holiday extravaganza. But this time, I want to just give you a little overview of what we have going on. And we have... Let me find my notes here. A lot we're going to cover. We're going to show... I'm going to try to show every cover ever published of Marvel Team Up and some history of Marvel Team Up. And did you know that was the second comic book that featured Spider-Man? And it's actually the third if you count Amazing Fantasy 15. We'll get into that in a little while. The sound is fine at my end, says Kay Moonen. And Joe also said the sound is fine. Good. I just want to make sure it's not too loud because I'm very pitchy. My voice goes up and down. The levels are all over the place with my hyper voice. So I want to make sure I don't offend anyone. Well, yeah, Tracy, I know you like the comic books, so I definitely wanted to put this together for your benefit. Absolutely. Okay. Now, let's get started with this. I'm going to just give you a brief overview, and then we'll get rocking and rolling. Okay. Producer, I can't see the notes, the link. I'm trying to find the sheet. If you're back there, I know you're backstage. So I'm going to just say, it is Podblast time, and this is your weird, informative, and hopefully fun time capsule of memories of days gone by as we forge ahead together in the game of life. And you know what? I have to change my camera shot. I'm going to change my camera just for you all, and then we'll get rocking and rolling here. Yeah. Let me change the shot so I can be in HD. There we go. That's better. Hey! Now we're rocking and rolling. Yes, indeed. All right. Kay Moonen said, Marvel Team Up is very Spider-Man centric. Some great stories and covers. Yes, it's a criminally underrated comic book title. And we're going to discuss the values and a lot of other stuff. Okay. Now I just want to say that let me just scroll this down here. You can follow the Nostalgic Podblast on social media. We're on TikTok. I'm on Instagram and on X. And I invite you to come and check it out. Here we go. Now, here is what's going to happen today in tonight's Podblast. Of course, it's your weird, informative, and hopefully fun time capsule of memories of days gone by. I'm Chance Bartels, no relation to Chance the Rapper. And tonight, I've got a good one for you today, as Steve Harvey says when he hosts Family Feud. This is the 8th installment of my ongoing series I call Every Issue Ever Made, in which I feature every cover of a comic book title from my collection. I try to limit it to 100 issues or less, but this time I'm going to try to show you 157 comic book covers. That's 150 regular monthly issues of Marvel Team Up and 7 annual double-sized editions. So I'm going to go through it quickly so I don't spend too much time and waste any of your precious time with an overlong show. But so far in this series, I first covered Ghost Rider Volume 1, the 1970s and 1980s Johnny Blaze character series. Johnny Blaze is the character that becomes the flaming Ghost Rider. And then we covered Marvel Feature Volume 1, which was the precursor title to Marvel 2-in-1, starring The Thing from the Fantastic Four, the big pile of rocks. Then in the third installment, I showed you every issue ever made of the Defenders comic book, which was the 1970s version of the Avengers, both Marvel comic books, of course. Then I covered every issue of Marvel Premiere, Volume 1 to be specific, and then Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, and Iron Fist, every issue of Iron Fist and Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, were covered and shown. Then in installment 6 of every issue ever made, I showed you Iron Man issues 1 through 100. Now, I have issues 1 through 320 in my collection, but again, I didn't want to have an overly long show, so we'll do part 2 of Iron Man in the very near future, where I cover issues 101 through 200. And then at last, the last time we did this, over 5 months ago, it's been far too long since we did an Every Issue Ever Made segment, I showed you Silver Surfer Volume 1, the 1968 to 1970 series, every issue of that series leading into the release of the Fantastic Four movie back in July of 2025. So now, for the next installment, the 8th installment, it's every issue ever made of Marvel Team Up starring Spider-Man. So, with all 157 time-willing issues, that's 150 main issues, as I mentioned, plus 7 annuals, you will see close-up covers from my personal collection. I took photos all week of each and every cover, the basic plot outline, the key first appearances in each book, if there were any, the creator credits, the cover artists, the writer, and the interior pencil and ink artists, some fun facts about each issues, and then the current market value using Key Collector Comics website at keycollectorcomics.com and actual sales at gocollect.com. That's a website that compiles real data, actual sales, online auctions, and live in-person auctions of comic books. And so I pulled the data for you when I researched this show. Now, if you're listening to this program, the Nostalgic Podblast, with your host, Chance Bartels, moi, at Fistful of Radio out of Atlanta, or on any audio platform like Apple Podcast, don't worry. I've got you covered. I made this episode very listener-friendly, but if you do want to see the artwork, it's so easy to do that. Simply head to YouTube, and search the Nostalgic Podblast. I'm going to spell that out for anyone who might be listening. It's the, of course, T-H-E, Nostalgic, not nostalgia, Nostalgic, spelled Nostalgic, and then Podblast, not podcast, Podblast. That's 3 words, the Nostalgic Podblast. And then when you search at your search engine of choice, I prefer Google, you will see at the top of your search, the Nostalgic Podblast YouTube. Click that, then please click the Live tab and select the thumbnail image with the covers of Marvel Team Up issues 1, 15, and number 19. Now, you can be a part of the show by calling in old school. The number is 770-438-1050, or simply leave a comment in the live chat, as Tracy did and Kay Moonen did, and Bob did up in New York, and many others like Skeleton. And I'll put your comment on the screen. Now, I want to just talk about some history of Marvel Team Up, and I'll show you the first cover. So before Marvel Team Up began, Spider-Man had already exploded in popularity. He first appeared in Amazing Fantasy 15 way back in 1962. But I want to show you something. I want to show you the precursor to that book. Before he appeared in the final issue of a comic book that began as Amazing Adventures way back on Tuesday, March 7th, 1961. Let me show you what that cover looked like. I have it right here. Switch to my photos. And I got it right here. Yes. Here is Amazing Adventures, issue 1. Now, check this out, Tracy and everyone. This is a cool monster. See, back in 1961, let me take this comment off the screen. It's kind of stuck. There. You had monster comic books primarily, and Western comic books, and war comic books. So this was really before the Marvel Age of Comics began, but just before. Okay, now this issue actually hit the scene. This is the very first issue of what would become the book that had the first appearance of Spider-Man. Okay, so this issue was released, as I said, on Tuesday, March 7th, 1961. Right there. But with the release of issue 7 of this book, the book was rebranded. This is back on Thursday, August 31st, 1961, in which Amazing Adventures was retitled Amazing Adult Fantasy, with this very issue you see on the screen with a 10-cent cover price. Then, let's flash forward. So that, let me just give you a point of context here. On Thursday, August 31st, 1961, guess what was out on newsstands along with this book? The Fantastic Four, issue number 1, had been out for about 2 weeks. It was released on August 8th, 1961. This is August 31st, 1961, which issue 7 of Amazing Adult Fantasy was released to the public. And of course, Fantastic Four #1 began the Marvel age of the superhero comics. It was a very hot seller. So, there was yet another change with this book, which began as Amazing Adventures, then became Amazing Adult Fantasy. It was retitled again. The word adult was dropped from the title, and it simply became known as Amazing Fantasy, with the 15th and final issue of that title. But in that book was an 11-page story that introduced Spider-Man, as you see right here on your screen. I'm showing it, listeners. If you want to see it, go to the YouTube channel, The Nostalgic Podblast, and click the live tab and look for the Marvel Team Up comic book covers and go to the 15-minute, 45-second mark. That's an iconic cover drawn by Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. So the 11-page story was a sort of they threw Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. Stan Lee wrote it and Steve Ditko drew it. They sort of threw something at the wall and tried to see if it would stick. And it certainly did with Spider-Man. Because even though Amazing Fantasy was canceled, the character was so popular with fan mail that they created a comic book, Amazing Spider-Man issue #1. But before I get to that, I want to show you an alternate cover for Amazing Fantasy 15. Look at the rejected cover. Which one do you like best? I'm showing listeners an alternate unpublished cover that was drawn by Steve Ditko. It's not quite as dynamic as the one by Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. But I just wanted to show that for everyone. I'm deleting pictures here. I stall. Yeah, so this is one of the most popular and most expensive comic books in history. This is if you have it in good condition, like a 9.0 or higher, if you had, say, a 9.6 grade, you're going to be a multimillionaire. But I have a clip I want to show you from 1962. Oh my gosh, I didn't even mention yet that this comic book, Amazing Fantasy 15, that introduced Spider-Man, hit the street and the buying public on Tuesday, June 5th, 1962. But there was a show called Naked City on television that showed a newsstand that featured this comic book as well as the comic book that introduced Marvel's Thor, which was Journey to Mystery 83. I'm going to play that clip right now. It's very brief. It's in black and white, and I think you'll really dig this. Look closely for this cover in the background. Can you imagine going back in time and buying every copy in that newsstand and having it like Biff Tannen style in Back to the Future Part 2 and selling it at auction? You'd be loaded. Well, let's look at this clip and note the great Burgess Meredith in this clip. Here it is. It's about a minute long. Look at the background. Pay attention to the comic books on this newsstand.
Okay, give me a pencil. Crayon, quickly.
Oh, sure.
Yes, it's me, Duncan Christ.
Christ, the great poet.
Christ the greatest. Where's your marking pencil?
In my pocket.
Give it to me.
Well, tell a poem. You're a poet. Tell a poem.
Dabba 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 dabba, you mean brackish little merchant. Dabba dabba, there's a poem for you. Give me this. Now, I need some stamps. Do you have any? I have a poem for you. Only the dead are honestly arrayed. The touch of a corpse, all the earth is equal. The marble silk mausoleum, the warm rotted
Look at the
box
newsstand.
are idiot empty, the same.
Duncan, give me back those manuscripts. I paid you for them, Duncan. They belong to me.
Among other
Look
wet,
at that.
sweet irrelevancies are tears and flowers.
Unbelievable. I just think that's so cool. Wow. Okay. Look at this. I've gone almost 20 minutes. I haven't even shown you the first edition of Marvel Team Up #1. So let's get right to it, shall we? Get back to my pictures and we can start showing some comic books again from my collection. So we left off with Amazing Fantasy 15 that introduced Spider-Man. That was the last issue of that particular title. Okay, that's June 5th, 1962. So, although Amazing Fantasy was canceled after its 15th issue was published, the fan mail poured in, as I mentioned before I showed that clip, praising the character of Peter Parker, the alter ego of Spider-Man, the teenager, the high school student, and it led to his own all-new comic book series titled The Amazing Spider-Man, which hit the street on Monday, December 10th, 1962. Let's look at that cover now. It's right here. I love the webbing under the arms of Spider-Man. I think it just looks really, really cool. Get to my pictures. There we go. There's my pictures. Okay. Here's issue number 1 of Amazing Spider-Man. I just love that. Now, what is common? I think it's interesting. The word amazing was in Amazing Adventures number 1, Amazing Adult Fantasy, Amazing Fantasy 15, and Amazing Spider-Man. That's like the only carryover from the title that spawned Spider-Man. Very, very cool. So, let's see here. So, let's move on to Marvel Team Up, the main subject of tonight's Podblast. So, Marvel Team Up was the first major ongoing spin-off series for Spider-Man, preceded by a short-lived magazine titled Spectacular Spider-Man from 1968. I'm going to show that right now. I have them right here in my hot little hands. Get my camera shot here. Oh, dear. Take this off and show you. Make myself big. Here's the magazine. Hang on a second. Let me change my camera shot. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. This is Spectacular Spider-Man magazine size, issue 1. It did not sell very well. It was in black and white. In fact, it was reprinted over the course of a couple issues of Amazing Spider-Man years later in the early 1970s. So that's Spectacular Spider-Man issue 1. Isn't that cool? I love the hand-painted cover. And that magazine was released on Tuesday, April 9th, 1968. Now, issue 2 was released on August 1st, 1968, this time in full color. I love this. And this was tied into Amazing Spider-Man because you see in certain issues around the 60s, like issue 62, 63, 64 of Amazing Spider-Man, Norman Osborn is starting to revert to the Green Goblin again. And that was a direct tie-in to this magazine that Marvel was hoping that people would buy. Well, the sales were okay and eventually was canceled. But now enter Marvel Team Up. So aside from those two magazines, in terms of comic books, flash forward to 1971 when Marvel Team Up issue number 1 hit the street. And I'm going to show that cover right now. It is right here. There you go. There is Marvel Team Up issue number 1. It was released on December 27th, 1971, with a March 1972 cover date. And it featured, as you can see, Spider-Man and the Human Torch in a story by writer Roy Thomas and artist Ross Andrew. And Spider-Man and the Human Torch were originally the permanent headliners of the series Marvel Team Up, but the creators found this format somewhat limiting. And after just 3 issues, the Human Torch was dropped in favor of a rotating co-star slot along with Spidey. So now we will break down every issue ever published of Marvel Team Up, the comic book title. Now, to put the publishing timeline in context for you, I do have a few headlines pertaining to 1971. Let me get back to my notes here, and I will show them to you. And I'll get back to the chat in just a second. I'm going to take what's called a chat break and show those to you in just a minute. So, history. Timeline, 1971. Okay. All right. Let's see. I've got it. Let me go back to my notes. I can't see it here. I'm just going to read some for you from my notes that I prepared. Some headlines. 1971. What was going on in 1971? Well, December 1st, 1971, the famous Christmas song, Happy Xmas, War is Over, is released by John Lennon and Yoko Ono. Okay. Also on December 2nd, 1971, the first spacecraft to reach Mars, the Soviet Mars 3 lander, landed on the surface, transmitting for only a few seconds before going silent. The aliens got it, right? And let's see, just a few more. This was sad. December 4th, 1971, during a Frank Zappa concert, a casino burned down, and the tragedy is memorialized in the song Smoke on the Water, a song by Deep Purple. Okay. And now the top 5 songs from Billboard charts from December 11th, 1971. You had Sly and the Family Stone. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. That was number 1. And then you had Isaac Hayes, the theme from Shaft. And then you had the Shy Lights, Have You Seen Her, coming in at number 3. At number 4, Michael Jackson's Got to Be There. And then number 5, Three Dog Night, Just an Old-Fashioned Love Song, was number 5 on the charts. And then one last note about 1971. On December 14th, 1971, the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco lost power all night due to a power failure. So there was no light all night. Okay, so that's just what was going on in terms of pop culture and news in 1971. Oh, one more, though. December 19th, 1971, a movie premiered, A Clockwork Orange, a film directed by Stanley Kubrick, based on the book by Anthony Burgess and featuring Malcolm McDowell, takes place. And I talked with Malcolm McDowell back on September 20th, 1996 on The Late Show with Tom Snyder. And I asked actor Malcolm McDowell what it felt like to kill off Captain Kirk. It's on my YouTube channel. If you want to check it out, on the Nostalgic Podblast YouTube channel, you can see for yourself. I made Tom Snyder crack up when I asked that question. And you got to see what Malcolm said. His answer to me is priceless. His answer to my question. Oh, one other quick thing. Christmas Day, 1971, the longest game in NFL history took place between the Miami Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs, with the Chiefs losing to the Dolphins 27-14. This may not seem very long to you. The game lasted 82 minutes, 40 seconds, but remember, that's without timeouts, halftime, and commercial breaks. That's true. To date, here in almost December 2025, that's the longest football game in history from Christmas Day, 1971. All right, now finally to the comic books. I got to go really quickly. As I mentioned before, I want to give credit to the websites I sourced. KeyCollector.com website for some of the key notes about key aspects to the issues you're going to see, and then GoCollect.com for official sales values based on actual auctions. And I want to thank MarvelFandom.com for actor and writer credits, as well as the dates that the books actually hit the streets in terms of being on the spinner racks, little metallic spinner racks, and on the newsstands back in the day. Okay, so now that I got that out of the way, Marvel Team Up number 1, as you see, that cover art was by artist Gil Kane, who penciled it, and it was inked by Frank Hayoka. And that's spelled Giacoia. Now, Gil Kane was born, I just want to mention quickly, as Eli Katz on April 6th, 1926 in Latvia. He sadly passed away at the age of 73 on January 31st, 2000 in Miami, Florida. Now, Frank Hayoka was born on July 6th, 1924. He died at the age of 63 on February 4th, 1988. Now, what's interesting, and I also want to mention there was a letterer, Sam Rosen, who also helped with this cover art. He primarily did lettering, meaning the guy who literally wrote the letters that you read in the dialogue balloons in the comic books. But he also did a little bit of artwork in terms of ink work. Now, Sam Rosen was born on April 4th, 1922 in New York City. And he passed away on April 8th, 1992 at the age of 70 in Brentwood, New York. All right, so this issue, Marvel Team Up number 1, was written by Roy Thomas, and Roy turned 85 years young back on November 22nd, 2025. He's born in 1940 in Jackson, Missouri. He's still with us. I don't want to jinx the man. Now, the artist of the interior of this book, let's look at the inside of this book really quickly, shall we? The interior art was by Ross Andrew. He's one of my favorite artists, and he's somewhat underrated. Put that back on the screen here. Something, and I'll get this to you. There it is. There's issue number 1 that I was showing earlier, and there's the inside, and you can see Ross Andrew right there. Change something here. Oh, She beat me to it. My producer's backstage. I tried to hit the button, but she beat me to it. So that's what the inside, that's what's called a splash page. It's page 1, if you will. And Spider-Man and the Human Torch, I got some trivia for you. Human Torch first met in what comic book? Does anyone in the chat know? No Google cheating, please. Trivia. In what comic book did the Human Torch and Spider-Man first meet? Let me look at the chat and see if anyone knows the answer to that. There's Natalie, my producer. She's in the chat. Hello to my flock. Southern California Sarah is here. And she's thanking everyone for tuning in. And Kay Moonin saying, hey to my flock. It's really nice to see you, my flock. Hello to Mama Dingo. She's in Australia, the land down under. So nice to see you. Oh, and Bob says, I was born in 1971. Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you the answer. Because we don't have all night. And hello to Chatty. That's Mikey, my part-time, mostly full-time co-host. He's under the weather. I mentioned that earlier. I hope you're feeling better. And the next show I'm going to do is going to be a Christmas live extravaganza, and you are invited, and so is everyone in the chat, to the Nostalgic Podblast Christmas party, which will be coming up, and a holiday party for Tracy and others. But I know she celebrates both Hanukkah and Christmas. I think that's really cool. I should celebrate Hanukkah as well as Christmas myself. I think that's cool to celebrate everything. Okay, I'll just tell you the answer. The answer is, and I don't have a picture of it, Strange Tales Annual 2. I know that's a tricky question. And did you know that's actually the fourth appearance of Spider-Man? First appearance was in Amazing Fantasy 15 that we covered tonight. Second appearance, Amazing Spider-Man issue 1. Third appearance in Amazing Spider-Man issue 3. And then Strange Tales Annual 2 was released in 1963 before Amazing Spider-Man issue 3 hit the street, which introduced Dr. Octopus. So there's a little bit of trivia for you. But they also appeared, the Human Torch and Spider-Man, in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 8. But I'm all over the place. That also was from 1963. Let me get back on track, or we'll be here all night. Yeah, Joe, that's right. Human Torch was in a lot of Spider-Man issues. In Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, which was the third spinoff of Spider-Man. That debuted in 1976. I'll do a video on that title. But Marvel Team Up was the second title to hit after Amazing Spider-Man did. Okay, so there's the inside by Ross Andrew. Let me show you some of the interior pages. There is Sandman, who's the villain. He's a Fantastic Four villain and a member of the Frightful Four. I love the artwork. Sorry, listeners, I'm being visual here. I love the artwork of the appearance of Sandman on the beach. In the upper right corner, anyone who's watching, you can see how the sand is forming a solid shape. The villain of Sandman. And I like that costume he wore in later issues, that little green costume. Also of note, in issue 1 of Marvel Team Up from December 27th, 1971, there's a nice, what we call a Marvel House ad, a full-page ad for other issues. And these are 2 key books. You have Tomb of Dracula issue number 1, which was published originally in late 71. And then Marvel Premiere issue 1 featuring Warlock. And I showed every issue of that in a previous video. I know I'm repeating myself, but anyone who tuned in late, if you want to go and look at every issue ever made of Marvel Premiere, I showed them all previously. And then look at this. On the inside back cover is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Look at him there. In 1971, that photo was probably taken in 1970 in a comic book full-page ad. There he is, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then here's the back cover of Marvel Team Up issue 1. How about that? I think that's really cool. All right, so there's issue 1. Let me just make sure I covered everything. Yeah, Ross Andrew, the interior artist. I just want to mention a couple quick facts. Let me put his artwork back up while I talk about him briefly, producer. I'm not going to go too long here with historical facts, but we're an educational program, and I like to keep it real. So Ross Andrew, before his long legendary run on Amazing Spider-Man, which began about 2 years later in 1973, he did Marvel Team Up, obviously, and he was born back on June 15th, 1927 in Highland Park, Michigan. I noticed a lot of early Marvel artists and writers were mostly from New York City and New York State, and several from Michigan. I think that's very interesting. That seems to be the common denominator. But Ross Andrew sadly died at the age of 66 back on November 9th, 1993. So he's been gone some time. I think he's somewhat underrated. I like his run on The Amazing Spider-Man better than anyone, actually, from the 1970s. And it was a long run from like late 73 up until about 1978 and 79. The inker of this title was paired with Ross Andrew down the line, and here for the first time, Mike Esposito. His pseudonym was Mickey Demio, spelled Mickey, M-I-C-K-E-Y, like M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E, and his last name is spelled D-E-M-E-O, Demio, in early Marvel comic books in the 1960s when he first hit the scene as an inker, but he later changed it to Mike Esposito, and that's his real name. He was born on July 14th, 1927 in New York, New York. He passed away at the age of 83 on October 24th, 2010. Now, here's the plot of this issue from MarvelUnlimited.com. It's titled, Have Yourself a Sandman Little Christmas. The plot is Spider-Man and the Human Torch team up in this Christmas special to fight the perils of the Sandman. So here's some key facts, because this is a key issue, number 1 of Marvel Team Up. Obviously, it's the premiere issue of the series that teams up Spider-Man with other Marvel characters. Also, it has a reconned first appearance of a character named Misty Knight. She's a black heroine from Iron Fist. Now, Misty Knight made her first intentional appearance in Marvel Premiere issue 21, but in Marvel Team Up issue 64, which you'll see tonight, or hear about tonight if you're listening, Misty Knight recalls the memory of a situation that occurs in this issue number 1 of Marvel Team Up. That's why it's a reconned first appearance of Misty Knight. Now here's the values. The unofficial ungraded value, according to keycollectorcomics.com, is just $220. So I would suggest you buy it now before the price goes through the roof. I think that's somewhat affordable. There's my copy on the screen right now. There's the cover. And the official value of a graded 9.6 copy, according to actual recent live auction and online auction sales documented at gocollect.com, is $1,920. That's more like it. I think mine, what do you think my grade is? Can you look at it? If you're watching on your TV screen, you can see it really closely in high definition. Not 4K yet. I'm going to upgrade the show to 4K really soon, but right now I'm just 1080. But yeah, that's a 9.6. Now, at gocollect.com, they used to not have memberships. Now they do. And before, you could see what a 9.8 sold for. And I'm not going to buy a membership to Go Collect. If they want to gift me one and I promote them, that's one thing. But I'm not going to pay for a membership because I simply wouldn't use it that much. I wouldn't get my money's worth. So all I can see are 9.6, with a 9.8 pretty much being the highest. I mean, there are 9.9s out there, but they're very, very rare. So actual sales of online auctions of only graded comics in person or online puts it at $1,920. Okay, now I got to move along to the next issue, but I did want to mention this. Let me upload something just to give you, I need to upload one more comic book because I want to show you what issue of Amazing Spider-Man was out when Marvel Team Up hit the newsstands. I'm going to upload it right now. Hang on a second. Chat amongst yourselves while I upload this, if you don't mind. Let's see. Oh, I got it right here. Yes. Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I got it quickly. I'm trying to do this on the fly. Let me give you some inside baseball. There's only 100 images I can have on StreamYard. There's a limit. And I took probably 190 photos for tonight's show. So I'm having to upload as I'm live, right? And it takes a little bit of time. So if I stall, I know it's strange, but I want to read something for you from this issue of Amazing Spider-Man that I'm going to show you in just a moment. It was issue number right there, 106. What a cool cover. This is what was on the stands when Marvel Team Up hit. This came out about 2 weeks before Marvel Team Up issue number 1 did. And I'm going to read to you a nice little blurb inside this issue that promotes Marvel Team Up and lets the public know there's a second Spider-Man title that they can buy and enjoy. Uploading that notice right now. Okay, now if you were to open this book, look at the inside. I love that cover and I love that page 1. That's the splash page, which is page 1 of the book. But now here's the notice of the coming of Marvel Team Up from within that issue of Amazing Spider-Man and every Marvel Comics issue that month. I have to get a magnifying glass. I'll be right back. I'm back. Did you miss me? Okay. It says, item. Remember last month when Tomb of Dracula and Warlock burst like bombshells upon an incredulous fandom? Well, just to prove we're not resting on our laurels, we've got no less than 3 startling new features to toss at you this time. First and foremost, for those minions who've been crying for more of the ever-amazing Spider-Man, we're introducing a brand new mag called Marvel Team Up. They call it Marvel Team Ups in the article, but it's Marvel Team Up, called Marvel Team Ups, which co-stars the old wall crawler and none other than the Human Torch. And we're kicking off the series with an offbeat Christmas mini-saga to boot. Next, we strongly suggest you pick up the latest issue of Amazing Adventures, which is Volume 2. I didn't mention yet Amazing Adventures, you know, the one that became Amazing Adult Fantasy, then Amazing Fantasy I talked about. They launched a Volume 2 in 1970 of the same name, of Amazing Adventures, which is an anthology title. Anyway, getting back to this quick article. Next, we strongly suggest you pick up the latest issue of Amazing Adventures, where you'll shake hands, if you really wanna, with none other than the Beast, one of the extraordinary X-Men. But is this truly the Hank McCoy of recent memory, or another far more fearful creature of the night? This one you gotta see to believe. And for those stalwarts who've heralded Conan the Barbarian, which was released in 1970 by Roy Thomas, as the greatest thing going, we've come up with a spectacular new series called Warrior of Mars, which debuts in the current ish of Creatures on the Loose, a monster magazine, and where else? But if you think these are something, wait till you dig a couple of wondrous winners will be tossing your way in the wee small hours of 1972. Keep facing front, Pilgrim, because this is the year when Miraculous Marvel really gets it together. Okay, that was kind of long. I don't know what that voice was I was doing. But that was the announcement of the coming of Marvel Team Up. Okay, so I showed you what was on the stands. Amazing Spider-Man issue 106, so I can delete that. And let me just do a quick scan and see if there's anything else I want to share with you. I'm glad I remembered to do that. Oh, yeah, I want to show you a couple more shots just of the beautiful art by John Romita Sr. I'm not trying to go too far, of course. Ooh, my camera moved. Of this issue of Amazing. Look at that. That's the love of Peter Parker's life. That's Gwen Stacy. And I wanted to show you a couple panels. I just love that. I'm not going to read it to you because this isn't a soap opera. And the dialogue is very much like a soap opera in the scene. But anyone who knows the Amazing Spider-Man knows that the Green Goblin, sadly, a few issues later, murdered her. It was the saddest day in Peter Parker's life. And it still kind of chokes me up. But I love their little love story. And she was his college sweetheart, Gwen Stacy. And later, spoiler alert, she got cloned by a character, the Jackal, who's introduced in Amazing Spider-Man issue 129, which also introduced the Punisher. It's a key book in my collection, extremely valuable comic book that introduced the Jackal as well as the Punisher and I think the Spidey-Mobile as well. Or was that issue 130, the next issue that had the first appearance of the Spidey-Mobile? But I just love their romance. Now, Mary Jane Watson is the character that, of course, Peter Parker married in Amazing Spider-Man annual number 18 in 1987. But really, Gwen was the love of his life. So anyway, enough said. I love the artwork and their little love story. But when the Green Goblin killed her, I have those issues, the key issues, issue 121 and 122. It was a dagger in my heart. All right, let's get on with issue 2 of Marvel Team Up. I just want to give you some historical context of what was going on in the country and with Spider-Man at that point in time. So I can delete this one. I got to delete. Got to delete. Got to delete. Got to delete. Here's issue 2 of Marvel Team Up. Now, at this point, the book was a bi-monthly title, meaning, of course, it was released every other month. But that was just for a little while. Eventually, it sold so well, it became a monthly title. They were sort of trying it out to see how well it sold. Okay, so now some credits for this issue. This was released on Tuesday, February 15th, 1972. The cover art was by Gil Kane and John Romita. Now, Gil Kane, I want to mention, Gil Kane liked to draw people looking up their nose, like they're looking up, like their heads are tilted back and you're literally looking up their nose at their nose hairs and their boogers, not to be gross. Seriously, it was a weird trait of Gil Kane. Great artist, but I thought that was very, very strange. Okay, but John Romita, the artist who also co-drew this cover, he took over from Steve Ditko with issue number 39 of Amazing Spider-Man. Everybody knows that. He also drew Daredevil, and his son, John Romita Jr., also became a comic book artist, and he co-created the Hobgoblin and other characters. We'll get to him later. But John Romita, some quick history. John Victor Romita was born January 24th, 1930 in New York City. He sadly passed away at the age of 93, a nice long life, on June 12th, 2023. Recently, somewhat, we're almost in 2026. He passed away in Floral Park, New York. And then there was a third artist who helped out with this cover of Marvel Team Up issue 2, and that's Mori Kuramoto. He was born on May 28th, 1922. He passed away way back on March 14th, 1985 at the age of 63. Now, this issue was written by Gary Conway, who was born Gerald Francis Conway on September 10th, 1952. He's 73 years of age, is alive. He's still with us. And he was born in New York City. See what I mean? A lot of writers and artists of Marvel in the early days were all from New York for the most part. And of course, the pencil artwork was by Ross Andrew again. The inks were by Jim Mooney, an inker I didn't care for. I don't like the way he drew people's pupils. They were always like really dilated looking. He's not one of my favorite inkers. And he's one of those inkers, like anyone that knows comic book art, some inkers make the art their own, like Joe Sinnott, and I like what he does. Vince Colletta is another inker that makes the art look like their own art instead of the pencil artist art, and I don't like that. But Jim Mooney had the uncanny ability to practically ruin every piece of pencil art that he ever graced. I hate to say that. There's fans of his. He's no longer with us, so I can say that. Jim Mooney was born August 13th, 1919 in New York City. He passed away on March 30th, 2008 at the age of 88 down in Florida. Here's the quick plot of this issue, and it's titled, And Spidey Makes Four. The Amazing Spider-Man and the Human Torch in another team up for the ages. This time, they're up against the menace of the Frightful Four. Yes, it's a continuation of the previous issue 1 with the Sandman, member of the Frightful Four. Now, here's the value. The unofficial ungraded value, according to keycollectorcomics.com, is only $55. The official value of a graded 9.6 copy, which is about what mine is, according to actual recent live and online auction sales documented at gocollect.com, averaged this book at about $175. So it really dropped off from $1,920 to $175, but that's typical. Everybody wants a first edition, so that's not uncommon. Let's move on to issue number 3 of Marvel Team Up, which is right here. I love this. This is a key comic book. You know why? That is the third appearance of Morbius, the vampire. He was first introduced in Amazing Spider-Man issue 101 and 102, respectively, and this is his third appearance. I love that cover and the colors. Listeners, it's got this green. And in the early 1970s, you had this box. You had like a square around the artwork and a nice border. That was just for a little while, about a year or so, maybe a year and a half. That was a trend with Marvel Comics that came and went in the early 1970s. And I think it's put to good use here with this cover for issue number 3. Released on Tuesday, April 4th, 1972. Still about bi-monthly title. That cover artwork was by Gil Kane and inker Vince Colletta. Now, Vince Colletta was born October 15th, 1923 in Italy. He died on June 3rd, 1991 in Westwood, New Jersey at the age of 67. And another artist helped out with this cover, John Costanza. Not to be confused with George Costanza, a fictional character in Seinfeld. No, John Costanza of comic book fame was born on August 14th, 1943 in Dover, New Jersey. And he's still with us at the age of 82. And Jerry Conway wrote this issue as well. So he's still writing the book. The pencil artwork was by Ross Andrew with inks by, again, Frank Heikoya. Here's the plot of this issue of Marvel Team Up. This is issue number 3. The title is The Power to Purge. Spidey and the Human Torch are back at it again, but can they contend with the terrible power of Morbius, the living vampire? Morbius eventually got his own title in Fear. There was a title called Fear, and it was reprints of horror comic books of the early days of Marvel, and then it became Adventure into Fear with Man-Thing, with issue 12 of that book, and then Morbius, the living vampire, took over with issue number 20 of that book, Adventure into Fear. By the way, in issue 19 of Adventure into Fear, the last one with Man-Thing, it introduced Howard the Duck to comic books. He was introduced in a magazine But he was not in comic books until issue 19 of Adventure into Fear. And then Morbius took over from issues 20 to 31, I believe, of that book. Anyway, but I digress. So this is the third appearance of Morbius, the Living Vampire, first introduced in Amazing Spider-Man issues 101 and 102. The unofficial ungraded value, according to keycollector.com, is $70 for this book, but the official value of a graded 9.6 copy is $267. Let's move on to a really key book, and it's a very interesting book, issue 4 of Marvel Tales, and I'll take a chat break in a moment. I'm not trying to neglect the chat. Look at this. It's so hard to find a comic book with black in the background in good condition because every imperfection stands out. All the creases, all the spine kicks, it stands out. I was fortunate to find this copy years ago at a comic book show in the wild, not on the internet. You can find pretty much any comic book if you have the money on the internet or at auction. But I found this just at a comic book show, Atlanta Comic Convention at the Century Center Hotel here in the Atlanta, Georgia area. All right, here's why this is significant. And I'm going to open this up for you. There's page 1. Look, he's having a nightmare, Peter Parker, of fighting with Morbius, the vampire. But this book is very, very significant, and I'll explain why right now. Okay, Marvel Team Up issue 4. This was released on Tuesday, June 20th, 1972. The cover artwork was by Gil Kane, Frank Haikoya, and Mori Kuramoto. Written by Gary Conway, pencil artwork inside by Gil Kane, and the inks were by a gentleman named Steve Mitchell. Let me show you their work together right there, which I showed a moment ago. Again. Okay, now this inker, Steve Mitchell, he was a professional comic book artist born in 1953. He began, get this, his career in 1972 with this very issue of Marvel Team Up, issue 4. His first published work for Marvel's competitor DC Comics was in 1973 on the title G.I. Combat. Later, he worked on titles such as Our Fighting Forces, Amazing World of DC Comics, The Superman Family, Weird War Tales, and many, many more. So there you go. And then also there was another pencil artist inside. You had John Romita Sr. and again, Frank Haikoya. Frank Haikoya. Now here's the plot from MarvelUnlimited.com. Quote, the title is, And Then the X-Men. Spidey's team up this time. All right, Spidey's team up this time around is with the X-Men. But this is no team up. It's a showdown. Why are the heroic mutants attacking Spider-Man? Now here's why this book is super, super underrated and really, really cool. Okay, did you know this is a rare all-new comic book story featuring the original X-Men team? Now, the 1963 X-Men book, which was first introduced with issue 1 in 1963, well, the sales had slumped after Neil Adams left the comic book. He was a great comic book artist, one of my favorite of all time. And so the comic book series had slid in sales and in circulation. So they actually started reprinting or doing reruns, if you will, of the X-Men, starting with issue 67 from January 12th, 1970, due to poor sales figures. And then the next all-new issue of the X-Men was issue 94, which featured an all-new X-Men team, mostly of new characters. And that book, X-Men 94, hit on June 10th, 1975. Okay, so that was about, let's see, this book was out on June 20th, 1972. So that's, a good few years before, 3 years, almost exactly 3 years before the new team was launched. The new team consisted of new characters like Wolverine, who was introduced in the Incredible Hulk, joining the X-Men, Storm, Colossus. But then you had some from the old team like Scott Summers, the Cyclops, and Jean Grey, who later became Phoenix and then Dark Phoenix. Anyway, so what happened was with the new X-Men on April 1st, 1975 of all days, April 1st, 1975, you had the release of Giant Size X-Men 1, which introduced new characters of the X-Men. But that was a hot seller. Then the X-Men were resurrected, reborn, and sales were through the roof, starting with issue 94 of X-Men. But before that, there were 26 consecutive issues of X-Men reprints, meaning you're paying 20 cents, 25 cents, 30 cents for a for a rerun. Actually, 25 cents, 20 cents, and 15 cents. Yeah, I think it was 15 cents, 20 cents, and 25 cents for repeats, reruns. Actually, a lot of them had all new covers, but that's not enough. They just had reruns. So my point is, This was a rare all-new story featuring the X-Men right here in Marvel Team Up issue number 4. Now, Dr. Hank McCoy was the only holdover. Okay, the Beast, as I mentioned earlier in tonight's show, he did resurface before issue 4 of Marvel Team Up. He was brought back to life in issue 11 of that Amazing Adventures Volume 2 from Tuesday, December 14th, 1971, in which he became the Hairy Beast. You hairy beast. He literally, like, he never had hair before, right? In the 1963 issue, 64, 65, 66, 67. But in 1971, they had him further mutate into literally a monster, a hairy beast. There's a trivia question for you. With issue 18 of Amazing Adventures Volume 2, what took over from the character of Hank McCoy's The Beast when the focus of that comic book shifted away from the Beast after issue number 17? It's actually a difficult question. What do you think the answer is? I'm just going to tell you because I'm running long. The answer is War of the Worlds, based on the radio drama and the books and, you know, Charles Verne and all that. War of the Worlds took over and when the sales dipped with the Beast as at the helm of Amazing Adventures. So anyway, in my opinion, Marvel Team Up issue 4 is a very underrated comic book because it is a rare all-new X-Men story, you know, during the 26 reprint issues. So here's the value. The value of an ungraded copy of this, according to Key Collector, this is very unscientific data. I don't know how they calculate this. It's BS, but they say it's $125. But the official value of a graded 9.6 copy, according to actual auction sales at GoCollect.com, is $1,000 for this book. And my copy is pretty sweet. I should have it graded. Problem with grading is it's encased in a hard plastic shell. And you can't read it. You can't open it. You can't smell it. I love the way newsprint smells. I just do. Always have. But I should have some graded just as an investment that I have multiple copies of and then sell them. And that's probably what I'll do very, very soon. Okay. So the writer of, let's move on to actually issue number 5 of Marvel Team Up. I got to start picking up the pace. Oh my God. I've gone already an hour just about. All right. I showed that. Check it out, man. There's Marvel Team Up issue number 5. As I pause dramatically, as I delete images, because I have to upload, I have a 100 image limit, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, let's talk about this, and I'll try to pick up the pace, producer. She's not complaining, but I know what she's thinking. My producer's like, Natalie, it's like, hurry up. This is so long of a show. All right, I may have to do a 2-parter of Marvel Team Up. All right, Marvel Team Up issue 5 was published originally to the public, released to the public on Tuesday, August 15th, 1972. Cover artwork by Gil Kane, Frank Akoya, and Mori Kuramoto. It was written by Gary Conway with pencil art by Gil Kane and inks by Mike Esposito. Here's the plot. The title of the story is A Passion of the Mind. Spider-Man and the Vision. The Scarlet Witch's main squeeze, even though he's an android. So let me ask you this. If the Scarlet Witch is getting it on with an android, is she really in love with a sex toy? Just saying. Just asking that question. Sorry. Passion of the Mind, Spider-Man and the Vision. Together in an exciting adventure. The mysterious mechanical creature known as the Monstroid is terrorizing the city. Can the wall crawler and the android Avenger take it down and find the mysterious entity pulling its strings? It's a key book. This is the first appearance of the Monstroid. Okay, values. The unofficial, unscientific value, according to Key Collector, is $25, but the official value of actual sales of a 9.6 graded copy, $204. That's the average this year in late 2025, early 2026, $204. Okay, let's move on to Marvel Team Up issue number 6 from Tuesday, October 17th, 1972. See, it's still a bi-monthly, every other month book at this point in time. There's the cover right there. That's Spider-Man and the Thing from the Fantastic Four. Okay, the cover art was by Gil Kane, Frank Akoya, Mike Esposito, and Mori Kuramoto. Written by Gary Conway. Pencil art inside by Gil Kane. Ink art by Mike Esposito inside. The story is titled, As Those Who Will Not See. Story. Here's the plot synopsis. A 2-on-2 showdown. Spider-Man and the ever-loving blue-eyed Thing find themselves caught in the center of a contest between the Mad Thinker, who was introduced in Fantastic Four issue 15. I have it in my collection back in the 60s. A contest between the Mad Thinker and the Puppet Master, introduced in Fantastic Four issue number 8 from 1962, which I have in my collection as well. And he's the father of Alicia Masters, the blind woman and artist and sculptress in love with Ben Grimm, the Thing, the pile of rock monsters. Anyway, I digress. So, take 2. I'll read this again because I just kind of went all over the place with factoids for you. Spider-Man and the ever-loving blue-eyed Thing find themselves caught in the center of a contest between the Mad Thinker and the Puppet Master. The object of the game, kill your hero first. Value. This is a non-key comic book, so there's no unofficial, ungraded key collector comic value, but 9.6 graded copies averaged going into 2026, $298. Let's move on to issue 7 of Marvel Team Up. This was out for the first time. This is the last bi-monthly issue. This is from December 12th, 1972, about a year after the first issue was released. Issue 7, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Bam, bam, bam. There's issue 7. It's Spider-Man and Thor, the God of Thunder. Not to be confused with Thundar the Barbarian, the cartoon from the 1980s. Remember that one? All right, this cover was drawn by Gil Kane, Frank Hiakoya, and Mori Kuromoto. The writer again was Gary Conway, pencil artwork by Ross Andrew again, with inks by Jim Mooney. Yeah, can't stand his ink jobs. The story was titled A Hitch in Time. Here's the plot. Spider-Man leaves his home turf of New York City and heads for Asgard, the homeland of Thor, the God of Thunder. And who else could be teaming up but the mighty Thor, locked in a battle with the menace of Krillin the Cruel. Non-key comic book, but the official values at Go Collect is $225. Let's move on to issue number 8 of Marvel Team Up, the first monthly issue. And Spider-Man teamed up with a really cool female character with this one. This was released on Tuesday, January 23rd, 1973. Cover artwork by Jim Mooney and Mori Kuromoto. And here's what it looks like. From my collection, these are all books from my collection, folks. The Cat. I love this character, the Cat. She later became Tigra, and you'll see Tigra in a future issue of Marvel Team Up that I'll show you today. Look at, that's a pretty good copy I have. Yeah, so the Cat, her book didn't sell very well. I think there's only 4 issues. I have them all. The Cat from 1971 and 1972. So Marvel was trying to promote the character by teaming her up with Spider-Man in this very issue. But that's kind of a cool cover, I think. So let me just tell you some pert dirt on this book. Give you the values and all that good stuff, and then we'll move along. Move along. As Stormtrooper said to Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi and R2-D2 and C-3PO and the Land Speeder in Star Wars. Move along on Tatooine. I digress. Here is the plot. The interior art was by Jim Mooney. It's just really bad, the inside, but I like the cover. Written by Gary Conway, story, and art by Jim Mooney. I said that already twice. I hate it when people repeat themselves, and here I am committing that sin. Here's the plot. The story is titled, The Man Killer Moves at Midnight. Spider-Man and the superheroine, the Cat, take on all new... Okay. Take 2. Spider-Man and superheroine, the Cat, take on an all-new man-hating menace, the murderous Man Killer. Now, this is a key book because it's the first appearance of the Man Killer, a character who later becomes Amazon. A monster known as Amazon. It's a necessary evil, folks. Amazon.com and Prime. All right. The value. Unofficial bullcrap key collector value is $45. The official graded value of a 9.6 graded book, the average into 2025 into 2026 is $270. All right, let's move on to issue number 9 of Marvel Team Up, shall we? This is from Tuesday, February 27th, 1973. This is a cool team up. This is Spider-Man and Iron Man, who've teamed up in the movies before. There they are in comic book form. So this is kind of a key book. This cover art was by John Romita Sr., the artist I told you that took over from Steve Ditko with issue 39 of Amazing Spider-Man and drew Spider-Man for years thereafter. And the inker of this cover was Joe Sinnott. And Joe Sinnott was born as Joseph Leonard Sinnott on October 6, 1926. He was born in New York State. He died on June 25th, 2020, at the age of 93 in New York. And also another inker on this cover was Gaspar Saladino. He was born September 1st, 1927 in Brooklyn, New York. He died at age 88 on August 4th, 2016. Now, Gary Conway wrote the story. The interior artwork was again by Ross Andrew and inks by a new inker, Frank Bole. He was born in Italy on June 23rd, 1924. He died at the age of 95 way back in the year 2020. May 12th, 2020, in Weston, Connecticut. So here's the plot of this issue. It's titled The Tomorrow War. On Spider-Man's partner menu today, the Invincible Iron Man joined Peter and Tony on a crazy trip through time into the Tomorrow War. Key fact, this is the first meeting and battle of Spider-Man versus Kang, the Conqueror, who controls time. Now, unofficial value, according to Key Collectors, $50. The official value of 9.6 copy recent sales average it at $220. Let's move on to issue number 10 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, March 27th, 1973. This is a key book because it has Kang on the front cover. And here it is from my collection, issue 10. After issue 10, after I talk about this, I'm going to take a chat break and get caught up on the chat. Sorry if I'm neglecting you all. I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to get through this really quickly so I don't have to be forced to do a two-parter. I'll force myself to do it if I have to. All right. Marvel Team Up issue 10, Tuesday, March 27, 73. Cover art by John Romita, Mike Esposito, and Mori Kuramoto. The interior story is written by Jerry Conway. Pencil art by Jim Mooney. Yeah. Inks by Frank Hiakoya. The plot. The story is titled Time Bomb. The Tomorrow War rages on with Iron Man trapped in the future. Spider-Man needs to find reinforcements, and who better to answer the call than its buddy, the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four. Best hero buddies together again. So it's key just because it has cover art featuring Kang. The unofficial value at Key Collectors, $55. The official value of a 9.6 graded copy at auction. Fair market value is $210. Okay, let's move on to issue number 11 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, April 24th. Oh, nope. I'm going to take a chat break. You're going to think I'm a liar. All right, here comes the chat. Chat. Hello to Mongolian Monster down in Florida. Good to see you. They do a live stream on Tuesday and Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time. It's a lot of fun. They're roommates. He and his roommate, his lovely roommate, talk about UFOs. They talk about Bigfoot, legends, big and small, and they just shoot the breeze, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm going to go tune in this Tuesday when you guys are back on the air again. Kay Moonen had said the Human Torch appears in Daredevil a few times. Yes, he does. Kay Moonen says 9.9 is a new thing at CGC, that top grade. Yeah, I know. And I think there's 10s actually. You know that? Thank you, Mama Dingo, encouraging people to hit the like button. Mary Jane Watson and Spider-Man in the comics were married at Shea Stadium in New York. Yes, they were. I have those issues. I have the direct. Hello to my power mod, Keebler Danger. Keebler is in the house. She's over in Texas State. And she linked Key Collector, one of my sources, for oh yeah, it's good to see you. Yeah. Let's see. Let me see if anybody else is here that I forgot to say hey to. Happy Thanksgiving to my producer, Natalie. She's here. So nice to see her and everybody else in the chat. Okay, I think we're all caught up. All right. So getting back to issue 11 of Marvel Team Up. Let me delete that one. We already showed that. Oh, we got another comment come in right when I do. You're welcome. Hey, I love your show. I've been so busy. I'm going to be back. I watch it sometimes and don't comment. So I'm there. I'm supporting you guys. And I sure do appreciate you both. You're both awesome. Awesome to listen to. It's a lot of fun. So we talked about issue 10. So now we're on issue 11. Let me delete that one. Issue 11 of Marvel Team Up. What a cool cover that is. I love that, man. I love that artwork. So that art was by John Romita Sr. by himself. He inked his own work there. The interior story is written by Gary Conway. And get this, Len Wein. This guy co-created Wolverine. Huge comic book writer. He's no longer with us. He co-created Wolverine and many of the new X-Men characters I spoke about earlier, like Storm and some others. And they killed one of them off in issue 95 and the character's third appearance, an American Indian character. Anyway, let's continue on here. So about Len Wein. the co-writer of this issue. He was born Leonard Norman Wine, W-E-I-N, Leonard Norman Wine, on June 12th, 1948, in, again, New York City. He sadly passed away on September 10th, 2017, at the age of 69 in Los Angeles, California. Now, friend of the show and my buddy since I was, I think, 10 or 11 years old, Danny Cochran. His mother taught 5th grade along with my mom, and they paired us up. You know, they realized that we both collect comic books. He has a first full appearance of Wolverine, Hulk 181, signed by Len Wein, if he hasn't sold it. A graded copy that he got. I thought that was pretty cool. He didn't have him sign it. He bought it already signed, but still, it's authenticated, and that's a pretty cool collector's item. All right, so the pencil artwork in this issue, number 11 of Marvel Team Up, was by Jim Mooney, not one of my favorite artists, and it was inked by Mike Esposito. The story is titled The Doomsday Gambit. Plot. The Tomorrow War reaches its thrilling climax. Spider-Man and his group of freedom fighters are still outgunned, but the heroes have a powerful trump card up their sleeve. Enter Black Bolt and the mysterious team, the Inhumans. All right. The official value of this book, based on the 1-year average going into 2026, is $264. Okay, so let's move on to Marvel Team Up issue number 12. This is from Tuesday, May 29th, 1973. And by the way, the Inhumans I just spoke about were first introduced in Fantastic Four issue number 45, which I have in my collection back in the 1960s, in 1965. Okay, here's issue number 12 coming right up. This is a cool one because it's got a monster, Werewolf by Night. And what a sweet copy I have in my collection of that book. So, this was released on Tuesday, May 29th, 73. I already said that. The cool cover artwork is by Gil Kane, John Romita Sr., and Gaspar Saladino. Interior was written again by Jerry Conway and Len Wein, the co-creator of Wolverine. The pencil artwork, and by the way, Wolverine first hit in 1974, so this is before Wolverine even appeared anywhere. And there's a controversy about Wolverine. I'd like to give you facts. There was a magazine called Foom that stood for Friends of Old Marvel, and someone submitted artwork that got published, allegedly, of Wolverine. And so a lot of people believe that Marvel stole that character, kind of like my story about Madcap getting stolen when I was a minor, when I was 13. But I won't talk about that. I've talked about that ad nauseum, and it's absolutely true. Anyway, yeah, Mark Gruenwald, who died in 96, got credited with creating my character, Madcap, a character that can drive people insane by staring at them. I have the artwork, I have witnesses, I have proof. Anyway, I won't go there. So, this was written by Len Wein, co-creator of Wolverine, the official co-creator of Wolverine, and Jerry Conway. The other creator of Wolverine, by the way, was artist Herb Trimpe, T-R-I-M-P-E, Herb Trimpe, I think is how you pronounce his name. And his daughter is active on social media. He's no longer with us. Herb isn't, the artist who drew Wolverine for the first time, and Hulk 180 and Hulk 181 and Hulk 182 from 1974, but she certainly is, and she shares a lot of his original art on social media. All right, so the pencil artwork of this issue was Ross Andrew, inks by Don Perlin. Now, about Don Perlin, whenever a new artist or writer of Marvel Team Up comes up, I like to give you some facts just one time. I won't repeat these, but I want to tell you about Don Perlin. He was born Donald David Perlin on August 27, 1929, again in New York City. He died on May 14th, 2024 at the age of 94 in St. John's, Florida. All right, here's the story, the plot synopsis of this story titled Wolf at Bay. While on assignment in San Francisco, Spider-Man is attacked by the accursed Werewolf by Night under the mind-altering enchantment of an evil mage. Jack Russell tries to rip the friendly neighborhood webhead to shreds. By the way, on Disney Plus, they did a pretty good job bringing the Werewolf by Night to life, I think, in live action, in black and white and later in color. They released 2 versions of Werewolf by Night. I thought they did a good job. So that's who this wolf character is, and he was first introduced, of course, in Werewolf by Night. Not issue 1, as you would think, but rather in a title I'm going to cover in every issue ever made, Marvel Spotlight, issue number 2, which I have in my collection in mint condition. That was the first appearance in Marvel Comics of the Werewolf by Night. But is werewolf really that original? It's kind of like Thor, right? That's a Norse mythology character that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby adapted for Marvel Comics form. the werewolf's been around forever, even before the Universal horror movies. So, but they had a different alter ego for the Werewolf by Night Marvel character, so I give that some credence. All right. So here's a key fact about this issue. This is the first team up of Spider-Man and the Werewolf by Night. They would team up later in this series, as you'll see in this installment of the Nostalgic Podblast. The unofficial value, according to Key Collectors, $50 of an ungraded comic. That's bullcrap, because the official, based on real sales value of this, is $290 of a 9.6 graded copy, according to GoCollect.com. Let's move on to issue 13 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, June 26, 1973, for my collection, and there it is. What do you think of that cover? That is a team up of Spider-Man and Captain America. When Captain America throws his mighty shield. It's the coffee, folks. I'm not on drugs. Really, I'm not. All right, so the cover artist here was Gil Kane and John Romita Sr. The story was written solely by Len Wein, co-creator of Wolverine. Pencil art on the interior was Gil Kane, with the inker Frank Hiakoya and Dave Hunt. Dave Hunt is a longtime inker on Marvel Team Up moving forward. This is his first issue, issue 13. Very underrated. He did good work with John Byrne later on, starting with issue number 53 of Marvel Team Up. But Dave Hunt was born August 2nd, 1942 in Newark, New Jersey. He died, sadly, on March 5th, 2017 at the age of 74. So here's the story summary. The title of the story was The Granite Sky. Can Spider-Man and Captain America combined stop the gray gargoyle from turning the city to stone? All right, the fair market value, according to GoCollect.com, recent 9.6 sales is $200. Let's move on to issue 14 of Marvel Team Up. This is from Tuesday, July 14th, 1973. Dig this artwork, ladies and gems. There it is, ladies and jewels. There's Submariner. Now, Submariner, around this time, got a different costume, a better costume. He's still wearing the green Speedo there. You can see a little bit of the green poking out by Spider-Man's left hip. And it reminded me of Greg Louganis, the Olympic swimmer. I don't know. I didn't like that Speedo look. He later got like this black costume that covered his nipples. You know, he had like a top and it had like webbing, like Spider-Man's webbing. In the early Steve Ditko issues of The Amazing Spider-Man, and way back in Amazing Fantasy 15, Spider-Man's first appearance, he had this webbing under his arms. Well, Submariner can fly, so he had like a costume that had like stuff under his arms that looked kind of cool. I should have pulled a picture of it. Anyway, let's get on, because the next cover is one of my favorites of the entire series. But some factoids about this issue briefly. Okay, this cover art was by Gil Kane and Frank Hiakoya and Gaspar Saladino. Interior writer of the story was Len Wein. Pencil artist of the inside was Gil Kane, the up-the-nose artist. He likes to draw people looking straight up their nose for whatever reason he did that. The inker was Wayne Howard. Now, Wayne Howard, new to Marvel Team Up. Wayne Wright Howard was born on March 29th, 1949 in Cleveland, Ohio. Not New York. It's a miracle. He died on December 9th, 2007 at the age of 58 in Derby, Connecticut. Now, the story of this book, it's titled Mayhem is, don't laugh, folks, the Menfish. That sounds like something from the old show Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. It's underwater mayhem. And by the way, when I got this from MarvelUnlimited.com, the synopsis, I didn't mention that yet, did I? These synopses, for the most part, are from MarvelUnlimited.com or MarvelFandom.com, respectively. It had a misprint. It said, instead of mayhem, it said Mayhew, like Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca in Star Wars. That was the actor in the Chewbacca outfit in the original Star Wars trilogy, of the 70s and 1983 Return of the Jedi. It said in the synopsis at Marvel Unlimited, the mayhem is the Menfish. It's underwater Mayhew. As Spider-Man and Namor must stop the evil plans of Tiger Shark and Dr. Dorcas. I kid you not, Dorcas. But not spelled D-O-R-K, it's spelled D-O-R-C-A-S. So if I were to read this with proper grammar, it would read like this. It's underwater mayhem as Spider-Man and Namor, that's Prince Namor, of Atlantis, must stop the evil plans of Tiger Shark and Dr. Dorcas. All right, the value of this, based on the average going into 2026 of a 9.6 rated, is $190. I can't see a 9.8. Wish I could, but I'm not going to pay membership to go collect. All right, here is one of my favorite covers of the entire run of 150 issues of Marvel Team Up. including the 7 annuals. So it's really 157 issues. It's this one. Check it out, man. The Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze. The second Ghost Rider. The first Ghost Rider was a Western Ghost Rider, which we saw in Marvel Comics in 1967 and 1968. But this is the Johnny Blaze 1970s and 80s version. And I showed you every issue ever made of Ghost Rider. That was my first installment of this segment right here in your friendly, the Nostalgic Podblast YouTube channel. First installment of every issue ever made was Ghost Rider. But look at that cover. I love that cover. It's so freaking cool. Let me get my magnifying glass. I like the conductor of the train. I'm sorry, listeners. It's kind of visual. Good Lord, I'll never be able to stop in time. And then the Ghost Rider saying, Spider-Man, reach out. Grab my hand or you've had it. And then Peter Parker as Spider-Man says, no, get off the tracks or you'll be killed too. It's too late. It's too late. Okay, so some key facts about this issue, and it's hard to find this one in good condition, by the way. It really is. It really is. The story was written by Len Wein again. Pencil artwork again by Ross Andrew. Inks by Don Perlin. That awesome cover art was by Gil Kane, Frank Hiakoya, John Romita Sr., and Gaspar Saladino. Kind of rare to have 4 issues working on a cover. It's usually 2, a penciler and an inker. So that's pretty rare. The story was titled If an Eye, meaning like an eyeball. If an eye, E-Y-E, if an eye offend thee. Ghost Rider blazes a fiery trail into Spider-Man's path in an effort to stop the entrancing orb. So this is a key issue. It's the first meeting of Spider-Man and the Ghost Rider. It's also the first appearance and origin of the orb, a humanoid body with an eyeball for a head. Again, it's so hard to find this. I found this at a collector show in this condition because all my other copies were just beat to hell. Because can you imagine kids taking it to school? They pass it around. It's just such a cool looking cover and a really cool story and issue. So it was never easy to find this in the wild. Now on the internet, yeah, you can find anything. Said that before, but it's more challenging to find a book at a show or in a comic book shop, especially these days. It really is. Or like in an estate sale. I've gotten a lot of good books for my collection at estate sales. Anyway, I digress. So the unofficial value, according to Key Collectors, is $100. But the official value of 9.6, with 5 copies sold in 2025 with a 9.6 grade, is $357. All right, let's move on to Marvel Team Up issue number 16. What do you think my book would be graded? This one right here on your screen. Anyone who's watching, what would you say that? Let me know in the chat. Speaking of chat, let me take a chat break. Oh, Tracy, you're still with us. I know you love the artwork. Let me hurry along because I know you like the art and not my rambling mouth so much. Okay. Let's see. Joe Gutfeld, New York State, said the first actor who was the first live-action Spider-Man died this past week. I know, from Electric Company, right? He played Spider-Man on the Electric Company. I know. It's so sad, isn't it? It looks like he had a hard life. God bless him. Yeah, I know. And I know that, and I should have done a video, but other people did. So you can just watch their videos. I don't care about the video. I care about him. Okay, so let's move on to issue number 16, Spider-Man and Captain Marvel. And some quick facts about this issue. If I could find my doggone script. This was released to the public on Tuesday, September 18th, 1973. The cover artists were John Romita Sr. and Frank Hiakoya, as well as Danny Crespi. Now, here's a new talent to Marvel Team Up. Danny Crespi. He died, sadly, of leukemia at the age of 59 way back in 1986. But he supposedly had survived for 11 years with leukemia. Wow. From 1975 to 86, that would be. That's incredible. The story inside was written by Len Wein, with pencils by Up the Nose Gil Kane, inks by Jim Mooney, and Dave Hunt. I like Dave Hunt. The story was titled, Beware the Basilisk, My Son. An ancient Kree weapon. That's an alien race. The Kree, K-R-E-E. An ancient Kree weapon unites Spider-Man and Captain Marvel to stop the pending destruction. The Kree were seen in Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 1 and 2, I believe. Yeah. And a little bit in Captain Marvel. Okay, so this is a key because it is the first appearance and origin of the character, the Basilisk, like Basil Chesterman, friend of the show. This character's name was spelled Basilisk. Basilisk. All right, the value, I don't like this. Key collector, only $15 for this issue. I'm drawing flag on the field, drawing the flag on the field. That's BS. But the official true value of a 9.6 is $150 with 3 copies sold at auction, according to GoCollect.com data. Let's move on to issue 17 from Tuesday, October 17th, 1973. Bam, bam, bam. And that is a character on the front. The Mole Man, he was introduced way back in Fantastic Four issue number 1 from August 8th, 1961. He also was in the new movie, The Fantastic Four, which is streaming on Disney+. I highly recommend it. It's a really good period piece. It's like an alternate universe 1960s. It's really well done. And you will see the Mole Man, the first Fantastic Four villain in that movie. But there is issue number 17 of Marvel Team Up. Let me quickly tell you about it. The story, I didn't tell you, the cover art's by Gil Kane, up the nose, and Frank Giacoia. And the interior story is by Len Wein, with pencil art by Gil Kane and inks by Sal Trapani. This is a new talent, so I got to tell you a little bit about Salvador A. Trapani, born April 30th, 1927 in Brooklyn, New York. He sadly died on July 14th, 1999 at the age of 72. Also, there were more than one inker in this. The inkers were Frank Giacoia and Mike Esposito. Wow. 3 inkers. That's unbelievable. The pencils are by Jill. Let me do this to tell you again. The pencils are by Gil Kane, who likes to draw up the nose, and 3 inkers, Sal Trapani, Frank Giacoia, and Mike Esposito. All right. The title of the story is Chaos at the Earth's Core, Mole Man and the Moloids. The Moloids. Okay. Mole Man and his Moloids terrorize Spidey and Mr. Fantastic. There were 3 9.6 graded auctions in 2025, so the average is $173 of a 9.6 in this condition there, in that condition of this book. Let's move on to Marvel Team Up issue 18 from Tuesday, November 18th, 1973, shall we? And it's right here. Now, Spider-Man's not in this one. Sometimes Spider-Man didn't even appear in his own title. This is a team up of the Human Torch and the Incredible Hulk, right? So let's see. Yeah, man. Thank you, Joe. I agree. These covers are great. And these are from my collection. I took these photos all week with my new iPhone. I finally upgraded my iPhone. I used an iPhone 16. There have been a lot of complaints about the iPhone 17, so I shied away from that. People are trading in, according to my friend Al Hardy, friend of the show. He claimed in a phone conversation this past week that, yeah, a lot of people are turning on their 17s to go back to a 16. Is that true? Have you heard about that, chat? It's not that I doubt Al Hardy. I'm just telling you something he told me. I'm not sure if that rings true or not. It probably does. Who knows? Okay, so that's issue 18 without Spider-Man from Tuesday, November 18th, 1973. A few days before my birthday. I was born November 21st, 1970 something. Cover art was by Gil Kane and Frank Giacoia and Danny Crespi. The interior story is written by Len Wein. Pencils by Gil Kane. Inked by Frank Giacoia and Mike Esposito. No Spider-Man. The story title was Where Bursts the Bomb? That's a tough word to say, on YouTube, you know what I'm saying? But I mean it in not a nefarious way. It's the title of a story, soulless bots. Don't come after me. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just reading the title of a comic book, okay? Okay? I'm not a bad guy, okay? You know what I'm saying? Blastar, the character introduced into Fantastic Four, blast out of the negative zone. For those who don't know, the negative zone is an alternate universe discovered by Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four issue number 51 way back in 1966. And it's really cool, the negative zone. It's literally like a backward zone. And it contained a character named Annihilus, who was introduced in Fantastic Four Annual 6, which also introduced Franklin Richards, the birth of Franklin Richards, who's in the new movie, The Fantastic Four on Disney+. But he was born in that issue, Annual 6 of the Fantastic Four. Okay. Blastar blasts out of the negative zone, and it's up to the Human Torch and the Hulk to contain him. Non-key, so the value according to actual sales is $190. Let's move on. Now, I want to mention that Marvel value stamps are a factor now. This was so silly. Marvel came up with, who knew, even back then in 1973, when this system was enacted, in 1973 into 74, they came up with a system where they'd have something called a Marvel value stamp that you would clip for prizes. It had a point value, and there'd be a different character drawn each month. There'd be Dr. Doom on a Marvel value stamp, for instance. There'd be Spider-Man, a different character. Could be a heroine, a hero, a villain, a villainess, whatever, but a Marvel character nevertheless. And so what you have is a lot of copies that had the Marvel value stamp clipped out by some kid at the time. So a book is worth a lot more if the Marvel value stamp is intact, obviously, as opposed to removed. And that includes the first appearance of Wolverine. There are a lot of copies with and without the Marvel value stamp, and that can drastically affect the value of the comic book if it's missing. So if you have these issues, check and make sure the Marvel value stamp is intact. And that kind of went away around 1976. They had puzzles in 76 that you could cut out, but the Marvel value stamp was a terrible thing in terms of collectors for about 2 years or so in terms of Marvel Comics history, from late 1973 into 1975-ish. Okay. Let's move on to, I said the value, didn't I? $190 of this book, 9.6. Marvel Team Up issue number 19. How long have I gone? Let me look. Oh, I don't want to. I've already gone an hour and a half. Unbelievable. Okay. I see ya. All right. I'm really enjoying these, says Tracy. And what is your least favorite team up? I'll tell you in just a little while. There is one, and we'll get to it in just a little while. All right. Here is issue 19. This is another one with Spider-Man and Kazar. Kazar was like Marvel's answer to Tarzan the Ape Man, right? By Edgar Rice Burroughs. He was introduced in the X-Men. Issue number 12, I think it was. Issue 10 or 12. Someone fact check me. I'll look it up. Kazar, who you see on this cover, and that is a Gil Kane cover. Let me just look that up. I have the first appearance of him. I have that comic book. Let me just look it up. Kazar was, oh shoot. Here we go. Kazar, because I want to give you accurate information. I should have had my Siri on. Siri, when was Kazar introduced? X-Men 10, March of 1965, cover date December 64 in real time. That's always 3 months ahead of real time. There you go. And I have that. So anyway, getting back to Marvel Team Up. God, this is going to be a long one if I don't. I'm going to have to probably do a two-parter. This is just way too long. I prepared way too much, as my producer told me. All right. Marvel Team Up 19. This is from Tuesday, December 11th, 1973. This is 2 years after Marvel Team Up began. And unfortunately, it was bi-monthly in the beginning for the first 8 issues. Cover art was by Gil Kane and Frank Giacoia and Danny Crespi. The writer of the story was Len Wein. The penciler was Gil Kane. The inker on the inside was Frank Giacoia. The plot, story title was The Coming of Stegron the Dinosaur Man. Stegron makes a mess of the savage land, that's where Kazar lives, and is none too happy about it. Maybe Spidey can lend him a hand. And this is a key. It's the first appearance of Stegron, a colleague of Kirk Connors, a.k.a. the Lizard, who was introduced way back in Amazing Spider-Man issue 6 in 1963. And I have that book in my collection. Okay, so Stegron was a colleague of Kirk Connors, who is the Lizard in the movies and in the comic books, whose own experimentation led to his transformation into a Stegosaurus. This is BS. According to Key Collector, the value is only $20. Average 14 actual recent auction sales in 2025, documented at gocollect.com, give a fair market value of this book at $170. Okay, so let's move on to issue 20 from Tuesday, January 15th, 1974. And that's right here. Look at that cover, folks. There's the Black Panther, who was introduced in Fantastic Four, issue number 52 in 1966. But there he is in Marvel Team Up, issue number 20. Check that out. The cover art's by Gil Kane, John Romita, and Danny Crespi. Stories written by Len Wein. The penciler was the very underrated and great Sal Buscema. Sal Buscema made his debut drawing Marvel Team Up with this issue. He was born as Silvio Buscema on January 26, 1936 in New York City. He's still with us, knock on wood, at the age of 89. And the inker of this book on the inside was Frank Hiakoya and Mike Esposito. 2 inkers. That is unusual again. Usually it's just 1 inker and 1 penciler. So the story was titled Dinosaurs on Broadway. Dinosaurs on Broadway, making those scary sounds, stomping all around, blaming it all. Dinosaurs on Broadway. Sorry. Stegron takes his destruction tour on the road to New York City, and Spidey will need the help of the Black Panther to tackle the man dinosaur down. The value is $184 with 3 sales of a 9.6 in 2025. Okay, so let's move on to Marvel Team Up issue number 21 from February 19th, 1974. That's a day before my sister's birthday. Oh my goodness. How cool is that? A day before my sister was born. Wow. Let's put the issue up. And there it is. There's issue 21. That's a Gil Kane cover if ever I saw one. Take it easy, Tracy. Thank you so much for the super chat. That's very generous of you. I will pay it forward. I really, really appreciate it. It makes all this effort worthwhile. Not just that, but just to see you in the chat. I really, really am grateful to you being there, participating in the show. And thank you for the happy belated birthday message. I appreciate that so much. You're very kind. Okay, so moving along, I want to tell you a little bit about this book. Marvel Team Up 21 from Tuesday, February 19th, 1974. Cover art by Gil Kane and Frank Hiakoya, Mike Esposito, Danny Crespi. Story by Len Wein. Interior art by Sal Buscema again. Inked by Frank Hiakoya and Dave Hunt. The story is titled The Spider and the Sorcerer. Stunned by a spell from Xandu, Spider-Man steals the crystal of Cadaverous in order to bring back the evil Massage, his love from a coma. It guest stars Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme. The value of this book, according to real sales of a 9.6, average it at $290 with 3 sold at a 9.6 grade in 2025. All right, Marvel Team Up issue number 22. That's from Tuesday, March 26, 1974. Let's look at this one. There it is. And the art on this cover is not great, in my opinion. I don't really dig it. No, sir, I don't really dig it. I don't really dig it. I don't really dig it. But let me tell you about the issue nevertheless. This is from March 26, 1974. The cover art was by John Romita Sr., the great John Romita Sr., and inker Danny Crespi. The writer of the story was Len Wein. Interior art by Sal Buscema. Inked by Frank Hiakoya and Dave Hunt. The story is titled The Messiah Machine. Hawkeye and Spider-Man find themselves at odds, but that may just be the opening these mysterious metal men need to destroy the heroes. Value of 9.6 with 5 sold in 2025 is $350. There you go. All right, now Marvel Team Up issue 23 from Tuesday, April 23rd, 1974. That's a better cover. Again, Spider-Man is not in this issue. This is a team up of the Human Torch and the Iceman, who is an X-Men character, of course. And let me tell you about this issue from April 23rd, 1974. The story is titled The Night of the Frozen Inferno. Iceman butts heads with the Human Torch when someone sets him up to take the fall for a jewelry store robbery. Cover art by Gil Kane, Mike Esposito, and Gaspar Saladino. Written by Len Wein. Interior art by Gil Kane and inked by Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt. Non-graded. There's no value because it's not a key. There were 3 sold at 9.6 in 2025. So the value of this book, based on real sales, is $235. Now here is issue 24 of Marvel Team Up. Oh my God, there's 150 issues plus 7 annuals. Woo! I'm gonna have to do a 2-parter. There is, this is a controversial cover because it's what they call a bondage cover. I think it looks more like a torture cover to me, but it's not cool whatever's going on in that damn cover. All right, here's issue 24 from Tuesday, May 28th, 1974. The cover art was by Gil Kane, John Romita Sr., Mori Kuramoto is back, and Danny Crespi. The writer of the story is Len Wein, with pencil art inside by the dreadful Jim Mooney, with inks by Sal Trapani. The story is titled Moondog is Another Name for Murder. Spider-Man and Brother Voodoo join forces after saving a woman from an attack by agents of Moondog the Malicious. So this is a key issue. This is the first appearance of Moondog the Malicious, and it has a bondage cover, which makes it more collectible by freaks. I'm kidding. The unofficial value at Key Collectors, $25. The official 9.6 value, according to 14 actual recent auction sales back in 2025, is $262. And again, check to make sure your Marvel value stamp is intact. Mine are, thank goodness. All right, issue number 25 was from Tuesday, June 25th, 1974, and let's show you what that cover looks like. Sorry, listeners, it's a very visual show. It's an average cover. It's not great, but not horrible either, and it's right there on the screen. This cover art was by Gil Kane and Frank Hayakoya. And his last name, by the way, Hayakoya, is spelled not how it sounds. It's spelled G-I-A. The G is silent. C-O-I-A. Frank Hayakoya. I looked it up, how you pronounce it properly. The story was written by Len Wein with pencil art by Jim Mooney. And the inks were by Frank Hayakoya. And the inside, too. The story is titled 3 into 2 Won't Go. Spider-Man and Catman. Can you believe this? Catman. I never even heard of Catman. I never read this issue. I need to read it. Spider-Man sees Catman with a briefcase and suspects he's up to something. Only for Daredevil to intervene. Value, 2 9.6 graded copies were sold in 2025. The average $242. Let's move along because that's an uninspiring cover. Marvel Team Up issue 26, released on Tuesday, July 23rd, 1974. It's right here. Spider-Man is absent again. This is a team up of the Human Torch and the Mighty Thor. That's my actual copy. The cover art was by Gil Kane, Mike Esposito, and Danny Crespi. Story inside was written by Len Wein with pencils by Jim Mooney. Boo! With inks by Frank Hayakoya and Dave Hunt. The story is titled The Fire This Time. The Human Torch must fight fire with fire when a lava man named Molto attacks him. Actual sales value this at $198. Now here's Marvel Team Up issue 27 from Tuesday, August 27th, 1974. And that is a cover art that I really appreciate. That's cover art I like by Jim Starlin, who penciled it. And we're going to talk about Jim Starlin right now. Wow. Tuesday, August 27th, 1974. So Jim Starlin's still with us as we're live, knock on wood. And he was born as James P. Starlin on October 9th, 1949 in Detroit, Michigan. He's 76 years of age as we're live. The inker of that cover is Danny Crespi. However, the story art was by the terrible Jim Mooney. What a letdown after an awesome cover art, right? The story is written by the great Len Wein, pencil art by Jim Mooney, inks by Frank Hayakoya and Dave Hunt. The story is titled A Friend in Need. Spider-Man squares off against the Incredible Hulk. Hulk always mad, but why is he staging a prison break? And can Peter Parker find out the reason before he himself gets smashed by the Hulk? So it's a non-key, so the only values I have of actual sales, it's valued at $400, $400 with 9 sold of a 9.6 grade at auctions of 2025. Look at my copy. That's a pretty sweet copy. Look how colorful and vibrant the cover is. Great. Let's move on to issue 28. From Tuesday, September 24th, 1974. Now, this is noteworthy because a DC Star drew this in part. Look at that. Spider-Man teams up with Hercules. Hercules, 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 Hercules. A little throwback to the Nutty Professor, the Eddie Murphy version. Hercules, Hercules. I'm sorry, I'm giddy, folks. I'm a little punchy. It's too much coffee. So, Dick. I'm going to show you. That's his name. The artist, Dick Giordano. He's known for drawing Batman. I want to show you something. Let me make my camera big. Let me take this off real quick so I can show you guys and gals something. If I can figure this out. Yeah, hang on a second. If Sarah were there, she'd be laughing her head off at how inept I am at this stuff. Okay, I want to make myself solo. God dang. Hang on a second. There we go. Good enough. This is one of the first comic books I ever got. This is Brave and the Bold. It's kind of like Marvel Team Up, in which Batman would team up with a different character. And Dick drew that cover. And that's one of the very first comic books I ever got. I just love that. There we go. I figured it out. By the way, check out my background. That's a frame poster from 1983 for the Secret Wars. And the movie's coming. Marvel's Avengers, The Secret Wars. It's going to be an epic. And also in the backdrop is Secret Wars issue number 1, newsstand edition. There is a difference, by the way, between the poster, which is for comic book shops only, and the comic book. One character was drawn on the poster who was removed from the actual comic book published version of issue 1 of Marvel's Superheroes, The Secret Wars. Marvel Superheroes, The Secret Wars 12-issue miniseries, the original. I'll just tell you, it's Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde from the X-Men, known as Sprite. She has all sorts of aliases. There was a Mattel toy line based on the Secret Wars, and it was decided by Jim Shooter and others that they didn't want to make a figure of her. They made one of everyone else. I have a sealed, just about everyone else. I have a sealed mint-in-the-box Wolverine and Doctor Doom, which I should have brought. It's in storage, but I'm going to show you that. It's carded and everything, but I just love this art of this issue from 1976. It's one of the first comic books I ever got. My mom got it for me when I was a little baby, when I was an infant. So getting back to the comic books, let me show you now why I showed you that. That's because this artist, who's primarily a DC artist, drew it. Dick Giordano. He was born Richard Joseph Giordano on July 20th, 1932 in New York City. He passed away, sadly, at age 77 back on March 27th, 2010 in Ormond Beach, Florida. So he drew the cover along with Gil Kane and Danny Crespi. So the writer of the story is Gary Conway, who returned to Marvel Team Up. He was the first writer of Marvel Team Up. And then pencil artwork by Jim Mooney with inks by Vince Coletta, another. The story was titled The City Stealers. Peter Parker and Hercules partner up when Manhattan is shaken by a supposedly impossible earthquake. So the value of this is only $150 with 3 sold in 2025, graded at a 9.6. All right, let's move on to Marvel Team Up issue 29 from Tuesday, October 26th, 1974. And that's this cover in which Spider-Man teams up. Nope, Spider-Man's not in it at all, is he? I fooled you. It's the Human Torch and Iron Man. How about that? Let me do something here. Let me fix my image, y'all. Yeah, that's better. Check it out, man. So the cover artist of this issue is John Romita Sr. He inked it and penciled it himself. And it was written by Gary Conway with pencil art by Jim Mooney. I said that already. I'm repeating myself. The story is titled Beware the Coming of Infightus, or How Can You Stop the Reincarnated Man? Iron Man needs help and summons the Fantastic Four, but for some reason, only the Human Torch bothers to show up. Value of this book is $185 with only 1 sold with the 9.6 grade in 2025. Okay. Marvel Team Up issue 30 from Tuesday, November 26th, 1974. Looks like this. Now, here is an interesting fact. I need to upload a picture. All right. This character here on the, let's see, is he in a picture there? No, he's not. Okay, I do need to upload a picture, though. Let me do that right fast, quick, while we all marvel at this comic book cover. It's right here. I want to ask the chat again, how was my audio level? Is it too loud? Is it too quiet? Or is it just right? Should I adjust it? I may have already uploaded it, and I'm wasting precious time. I'll just tell you about this edition of Marvel Team Up. Issue 30 from November 26, 1974. The cover artist was Gil Kane with inks by Frank Hyoka and Danny Crespi, written by Gary Conway, pencil art by Jim Mooney, Vince Colletta. Plot is titled All That Glitters Is Not Gold. Glory Grant from the Daily Bugle, where Peter Parker works, is in danger. Spidey and Falcon must engage in mortal combat against the mysterious Midas. Value is $280 with 3 9.6s sold in 2025. All right, let's move on to issue 31 from Christmas Eve 1974. Right here. And that teams up Spider-Man and Iron Fist, the Kung Fu God. All right. Cover art team was Gil Kane and Frank Hyakoya. The writer of the story was Gary Conway. Pencil art, again, by Jim Mooney with inks by Vince Colletta. The story is titled For a Few Fists More. Iron Fist gains the attention of Spider-Man. In one of the strangest battles yet, the two street-level heroes go toe-to-toe against Drom, a villain who is aging in reverse, like Ben Button, the movie starring Brad Pitt, huh? All right. And for some reason, I did not list the value of that book. It's a non-key issue. Let me look that up really quickly. I have it right here. So, according to GoCollect.com, it's right here at my fingertips. It is actual sales, $112 with 3 sold over the last year as we're live going into 2026. Fair market value, according to Go Collect, is $110 of a 9.6 graded copy. All right, so there you go. Got it for you on the fly. Now, Marvel Team Up issue 32 from January 28th, 1975. Cover art, Gil Kane, Frank Hyakoya. Interior story by Gary Conway. Pencil art by Sal Buscema. Inks by Vince Colletta. The story is titled All the Fires in Hell. The Human Torch needs help. And only the son of Satan. What a weird character. He was introduced in Ghost Rider issue number 1. And then he kind of got a solo story in Damian Hellstrom is his alter ego in Marvel Spotlight. Yeah, Marvel Spotlight featured the son of Satan. What a spooky character, right? Okay, but this story is titled All the Fires in Hell. The Human Torch needs help, and only the son of Satan can give it. Wyatt Wingfoot has been possessed by a shadowy force, so Johnny Storm seeks out the best exorcist in the world, Damian Hellstrom, otherwise known as the son of Satan. And Spider-Man is not in this issue. Actual value, it's only $100 with 9.6 graded copy sold in 2025. All right, let's get on to issue number 33 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, February 25th, 1975. And it is right here. Oh, I didn't show you that. Yeah, the one I was just talking about with the son of Satan, I didn't even put that up. Shame on me. There it is. Listeners, nope, you didn't notice it, but anyone who's watching, there it is. There's the one with the son of Satan. Okay, so at least I showed it. But here is, we've moved on to this issue. Now, this cracks me up. This character that you see right there was originally introduced in Amazing Spider-Man issue 36. And he was known as the Looter. Well, for some reason, they renamed him the Meteor Man. But here is what he looked like when he was first introduced. This is my copy of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 36. Right there. And there's the splash page 1 of that issue from 1965. When falls the meteor? Now take another picture. Oh, no, I didn't. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But that is the Looter, right? He's called the Looter. But he gets his power from a meteor. So that's why they called him that. But getting back to Marvel Team Up, issue number 33. From Tuesday, February 25th, 1975. Cover art, Gil Kane, Frank Hyakoya. Story by Gary Conway. Pencil art on the inside by John Buscema. Inks by Vince Colletta. The story was titled, Anybody here know a guy named Meteor Man? Can you tell me when he's gone? I'm off key. Ugh. I hope producer's not watching or listening anymore. She can sing like a bird. All right. Nighthawk, the character of Nighthawk, requests the aid of Spider-Man to track down the looter. It says looter in the description, but it's Meteor Man in the comics. So whoever wrote this synopsis for MarvelUnlimited.com messed up. But they didn't mess up because that's the original name. I like the original name better, the looter. I don't know why they changed it to Meteor Man. Anyway, I digress. Nighthawk requests the aid of Spider-Man to track down Meteor Man, it says looter online, a brazen thief who has stolen a natural artifact from Nighthawk's talons. Okay, now as I said, this villainous character was originally the looter. Amazing Spider-Man issue 36 was released on, I said 65, Thursday, February 10th, 66, but in production order, it would have been drawn in late 1965. So I was right after all. I was right, but wrong, but right. Anyway, and there's that issue right there that first introduced him. And that's from my collection as well. I guess Marvel Comics at the time didn't want to discriminate against looters, so they renamed the looter the Meteor Man. Okay, but getting back to the Marvel Team-Up comic book, let me take this off so people aren't confused. I'm not talking about Amazing Spider-Man, the first appearance of the looter. Right now I can delete you. Delete that picture. Delete that photo. Make room for the other photos. The value of that book, Marvel Team-Up issue number 33, according to actual sales, only $48, with one sold at a 9.2. There's not even a 9.6 listed at Go Collected. So a 9.2 sold for $48 back in 2022. And that was on November 5th, 2022, when that sale at auction happened. All right. So, and again, I can't see the 9.8 because I don't have a paid membership to GoCollect.com. Let's talk about issue 34 of Marvel Team Up as I put it on the screen. I think I deleted it. Ooh, did I delete it? I prematurely deleted. Oh my God. I deleted it. I can't show it. Are you crazy? I can't believe it. I can't show it. Well, anyway, I'll talk about it. Damn, did it pop up on the screen? It's from March 25th, 1975. I'm going to try to pull it up. Hang on. Let me see. I better not. I'll stop the show doing that. Damn. Issue 34. Let me look that up right fast, quick. Let me find Marvel Team Up issue number 34. I can't believe I did that. Did I show it, chat, already, and then I deleted it? Man. Oh, you know what I'll do? I'm so dumb. I'm going to pull it out of the box. That'd be the quickest thing to do. I have it right here. So let me make myself big, make my image big, and do just that. There. Well, close enough. Nope, there it is. All right, I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. Here it is. That's issue number 34 from my collection of Marvel Team Up. Now, let me tell you about it. As I hold it up really quickly. Issue 34, this is from Tuesday, March 25th, 1975. The cover art was by Gil Kane and Frank Hayakoya. The story is written by Gary Conway. Pencil art on the inside by John Buscema. Inker Vince Coletta. The story is titled Beware the Death Crusade. Meteor Man has arrived. See, in this description, it's Meteor Man. It was Looter in the issue before, 33, both on MarvelUnlimited.com. But anyway, Meteor Man, as he's called in this actual comic book, has arrived, and he's making short work of Spider-Man. Nighthawk recruits fellow Defender team member Valkyrie to take down the menace. But is Kyle Richmond's Meteor fragment lost forever? All right, it's a non-key comic book. 3 sold at 9.6 grade at auctions in 2025 for $90. All right, so there's that book. Now, issue 35. This is from April 22nd, 1975. And I can show you that picture. He's right there. That's the next issue. And again, Spider-Man is not in this doggone issue for some reason. Isn't that unusual? They were trying to mix it up over at Marvel. So this issue is from Tuesday, April 22nd, 1975. Cover art by Gil Kane and Al Milgrom, the worst. Al Milgram's still alive. I shouldn't say that, but his art, he was very sloppy as an artist. He was born as Alan L. Milgram on March 6, 1950, so he's 75 years of age, is alive. He's born in Detroit, Michigan. The story inside was written by Jerry Conway, spelled with a G, so we'll say Jerry Conway. The pencil artist was the great Sal Buscema. The inker was Vince Colletta. The story is titled Blood Church, Chapter 1, Dark Immortal. Chapter 2, Church of Blood. So there's 2 chapters in this comic book. Here's the plot synopsis. Where are Spider-Man and Valkyrie? Doctor Strange and the Human Torch are on the case, but find themselves entrenched in a mystery surrounding the innocence of God. Who are the members of this odd cultist collective, and what do they want with Valkyrie? The value of this book is $170, with 6 sold with a 9.6 grade at auctions in 2025. Next up, Marvel Team Up issue number 36. Oh, I love this cover. And David Eon of Open by Chance Toys has a graded copy of this. I think it's a 9.2 grade by CGC. But getting to this book, this is a cool monster book. This was released to the public on Tuesday, May 27th, 1975. And this cool cover was by Ed Hannigan, a new artist to Marvel Team Up. So I've got to tell you about his history. He was born on August 6th, 1951. He's still with us at the age of 74. He penciled this cover with inks by Mike Esposito and another new talent to Marvel Team Up, Irv Wantambe. Irv was born February 10th, 1919. He passed away on January 1st, 1993. Happy New Year! That's terrible. I know. I'm sorry. I'm not making light of the death of anybody, but what a terrible thing to die on New Year's Day. That's what he did. Irv died on January 1st, 1993 at the age of 73. This story was written by Gary Conway. The pencil art was by Sal Buscema. The inker was Vince Colletta. Not one of my favorite inkers. Vince goes back to the Thor Journey to Mystery issues of the 1960s where he would ink Jack Kirby. And I just think he made the art too much of his own. Anyway, I digress. So the story in this issue is titled Once Upon a Time in a Castle. The plot is Spider-Man versus an immortal foe. Ludwig von Schwann is the monster maker, a scientist brimming with insane ideas and even zanier disposition. When Spidey awakens next to Frankenstein's monster in a shadowy castle, the two must make a narrow escape or risk becoming the next science project. The value of this book, it's not a key, with 8 sold with a 9.6 grade in 2025 is just $100. Let's move on to Marvel Team Up issue number 37, released on Tuesday, June 24th, 1975. Another monster cover. That's Man-Wolf. You know who Man-Wolf is? He was introduced, his character in Spider-Man issue number 1. And that's Jonah Jameson's son, who's an astronaut who went to the moon and encountered a moonstone, which turned him into the Man-Wolf. And there he is. There he be. So the cover artists of this issue was Ed Hannigan, who did the pencils, and John Romita Sr., who did the inks. The story is written by Gary Conway. Pencil art by Sal Buscema. The inker was Vince Colletta. Let me change my camera shot back to the way it was. And that is right here. Let me try to get this a little bit better. I think I can do better than that. There we go. You can sort of see me there as I talk about the books. I want the books to be most prominent, though. So there it is. Oh my God, I've gone already 2 hours. So I'm not gonna be able to do all 150 issues. There's just no way. But Marvel Team Up issue 37, June 24th, 1975. The story is titled Snow Death. It's a monster mashup when Man-Wolf joins the fray. The monster maker is intent on creating the most horrific being known to man. Luckily, Spider-Man and Frankenstein's monster are on the case. S.H.I.E.L.D. intervenes in a big way, but Man-Wolf takes a hit. Value of this book, with 3 sold at 9.6 in 2025, is $150. So let's move on to Marvel Team Up issue 38. This is from Tuesday, July 22nd, 1975. You know what? I think I'm going to stop at issue 50 of Marvel Team Up. and that'll leave us 100 more issues. I've just gone so doggone long, and I think I'll pair all these together as like a set list on my YouTube channel, the Nostalgic Podblast. But we'll just say this is Marvel Team Up Part 1, because I don't want to go too long. I don't want to have like a 4-hour show. So there's Marvel Team Up issue number 38 on your screen, and I'll talk about it for the listeners. From Tuesday, July 22nd, 1975, the cover art was by Ron Wilson. Now, Ron Wilson is new to Marvel Team Up, so I must mention he was born. He hasn't revealed his birth year. All I found online, he's born February 16th in New York, New York. He's a black artist. I've met him. He's really nice. He also drew later The Thing, which was the title that took over after the cancellation of Marvel 2-in-1, which is a title kind of like Marvel Team Up, except for it's The Thing and someone. Whereas Marvel Team Up is primarily Spider-Man and someone teaming up. All right. So along with Ron Wilson drawing this cover and the pencils, you had Mike Esposito and Gaspar Saladino inking the cover. The story is written by Bill Mantlo, new to Marvel Team Up, and he's a very prolific writer of The Incredible Hulk as well as Marvel Team Up. So we got to mention he's still alive as we're live at the age of 74. He was born William Timothy Mantlo on November 9th, 1951 in Brooklyn, New York, another New York talent. The inside art was by Sal Buscema on the pencil side and Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt on the inking side. The story was titled The Night of Griffin. Night of the Griffin. Night of the Griffin. The X-Men's Beast pulls off a daring rescue, plucking Spider-Man and a scientist from certain death. Afterwards, Spidey and Beast learn about the scientist's latest project, a savage mutant named the Griffin, who's now seeking revenge against his creator. Value this book with 5 sold at 9.6 grade at auctions of 2025 is $90. All right, so let's go on to issue 39 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, August 26, 1975. Now, this has, I want to tell you about this one. I might have to open this issue up to show you something that I did not photograph. Issue 39 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, August 26, 1975. Cover art by John Romita Sr., prolific Amazing Spider-Man artist primarily, and Danny Crespi. The story was written by Bill Mantlo and new to Marvel Team Up, Yvette Perez. She was the first wife of the late, great George Perez, who drew the New Teen Titans, and he drew the Avengers on the Marvel side, among other comic book titles. The pencil art was by Sal Buscema on the interior, with inks by Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt. Now, the story was titled Chapter 1, Any Number Can Slay. The story is this. One classic team-up. Spider-Man lends a hand to the Fantastic Four's Human Torch when mob bosses capture Johnny Storm. Johnny Storm is the alter ego of the Human Torch. Flame on! Now, I want to note this. There's a sad moment where a boy shoots down an innocent bird in this issue. Let me open this up for the camera, issue 39, and show you this. It's kind of messed up, I think. It's just artwork, but I don't know. I have a tender heart when it comes to animals. Here it is. Now I'm going to make myself big, as they say, and hold up the actual book. What the hell? What the hell? What the hell? Bam, there I am. Here's the issue. I want to show you. It's kind of sad. Sorry, I'm bouncing that camera around. Okay, let me show you where this boy hits a bird, shoots it down, and then he starts crying. I don't know. I always thought this was sad and weird. This kid just grabs a handgun. Oh, no. Okay, I haven't read this in a while. All right, let me see if this will show up on the camera. Okay, you see that shadowy figure with the gun, right? This is like a mint copy, too, by the way. There's where the bird is shot. And the boy's crying. It's just artwork. It's not real. I just always thought that was kind of sad. I don't know. All right. You know what? I haven't seen this in a while since I was a kid. So maybe I overstated it, but man, what a nice copy, huh? All right, back to the issue. Oh my God, we've only done 39 issues of Marvel Team Up. We've gone well over 2 hours. Yikes. Sorry about that. Okay. So some facts. I'll put the cover back up of issue 39. That's the cover of the book you were just looking at. Hang on, let me get the shot right. I can do better than that. I'll do that. Okay. Oh, and I have a comment that came in. Yeah. The problem, Chance, is that you like to give a lot of details about these comics and it slows the show down. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where Omar is. I don't know. I'm not on Facebook anymore. And again, I don't want to talk about that. It's just a random AI bot recognized me from my channel that was erroneously, or my Facebook account that was erroneously taken out. So I've written many different agencies on Facebook, but they're flooded with email. Hopefully they'll get back to me. A friend of mine's wife got hacked and they emailed Facebook and they had a positive outcome. So I'm hopeful I will be back on there soon. If not, I won't be, anyway, but let's get back to the story of this issue, Marvel Team Up issue 39. And the story is this. Chapter 1, any number can slay. Yeah. Let's see. It's a non-key. So the 9.6 auctions in 2025, there were 9 of them, average out at $150. Okay, we move on to issue number 40 of Marvel Team Up. I'm going to stop at 50. And then we'll next time, or I don't know if I'll do next time or a Christmas show next time, but there is issue number 40 of Marvel Team Up, Spider-Man and the Sons of the Tiger. Cover art by Sal Buscema and Irving Wantambe. Interior art by Sal Buscema on the pencil side. Inks by Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt. The plot. The story is titled Murder's Better the Second Time Around. Martial arts masters, Sons of the Tiger, join Spider-Man to take out the Crime Master. Crime Master was introduced, I believe, in Amazing Spider-Man issue 27, which also featured the Green Goblin. Written by Stan Lee, drawn by Steve Ditko. So the value of this book, based on 3 recent auctions in 2025, graded 9.6, is $90. So let's move on to issue 41 of Marvel Team Up from October 28, 1975. And it's right here. The Scarlet Witch teams up with Spider-Man. Cover art team on that book for that cover is Gil Kane and Dan Atkins. New talent to Marvel Team Up. Dan Atkins was born as Danny L. Atkins on March 15th, 1937 in Midkiff, West Virginia. That's a new state in terms of Marvel talent. He passed away, sadly, on May 3rd, 2013 at the age of 76 in Reading, Pennsylvania. And then there was a third inker of that cover, Danny Crespi. The interior story was written by the great Bill Mantlo with pencil art by the great Sal Buscema, inked by Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt. The story is titled A Witch in Time. Instead of A Stitch in Time, A Witch in Time. When Cotton Mather summons the Scarlet Witch to Dr. Doom's castle, she sends out for help, and Spider-Man receives the call. Value of this is $170, with only one sold in 2025 with a 9.6 grade. So let's move on to issue 42 from November 25th, 1975. It's right there. Spider-Man with the Vision, who is the other half of the Scarlet Witch in that couple, that fictional couple. So November 25th, 1975. Cover art by Ed Hannigan, Mike Esposito, and Danny Crespi. The writer of the story inside is Bill Mantlo. Pencils by Sal Buscema. Inkers were Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt. The story is titled Visions of Hate. Scarlet Witch has been put on trial during the 1692 Salem witch trials. Spider-Man and the Vision face off against Cotton Mather to set her free. Value of the book, based on 26 sales at 9.6 in 2025, is just $60. Marvel Team Up issue 43 was released to the public on December 23rd, 1975. That's my nephew Henry's birthday, December 23rd. He's going to be 13 pretty soon. There's the cover for those that are watching. Now, in terms of the talent in this issue and the value. Cover art by Gil Kane, Frank Giacola, and Irv Watanabe. Writer of the stories, Bill Mantlo. Pencils by Sal Buscema. Inked by, on the inside, Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt. The plot is titled A Past Gone Mad. A new foe, Dark Rider plans to steal Dr. Doom's magical energies. Scarlet Witch must team up with Dr. Doom to defeat the nefarious Dark Rider. Dark Rider looks like something out of Mad Max, doesn't he? The way he's drawn there. Value this book, issue 43 of Marvel Team Up. One was sold with a 9.6 grade in 2025 at auction for $121. All right, so moving right along, issue 44 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, January 27th, 1976. We're into 1976 in terms of real time when these books were distributed. How about that? And there's the cover. Let me just make sure I'm not deleting the wrong one. I'm deleting photos as we go here, folks. Yeah. So the cover art of this issue was drawn by Gil Kane, Dan Atkins, and Danny Crespi. The writer of the story on the inside was Bill Mantlo, with pencils on the inside by Sal Buscema, inks by Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt. The story is titled Death in the Year Before Yesterday. Moondragon is pulled into the year 1692 by Scarlet Witch's magic and provides aid to Scarlet Witch, Spider-Man, and the Vision, and Dr. Doom as they battle the Dark Rider. Value this book, 4 sold with a 9.6 grade in 2025 is $150. Okay, issue 45 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, February 24th, 1976. That cover is right here. And it's Spider-Man and Kill Raven. Kill Raven was a title in Amazing Adventures Volume 2, by the way. All right, so that cover art was by Gil Kane and Danny Crespi. The story inside written by Bill Mantlo. Pencils on the inside by Sal Buscema with inks. This was a team for a long time in Marvel Team Up. Sal Buscema handling the pencils and Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt handling the inks. And their artwork was really good. My favorite, though, is John Byrne. Now, you're going to have a major X-Men talent joining the roster at Marvel Team Up in just a couple issues. We'll get to it in a moment. Along with the great X-Men artist, John Byrne. But this issue, 45, pencils by Sal Buscema, inks by Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt. They were a great art team, those three. The story is titled Future Shock. While trying to head back to his own time, Spider-Man is transported to the year, get this, 2019, and finds himself in the middle of Killraven's rebellion against Earth's Martian masters. Value this book was 7 sold at 27, 9.6 graded copies sold in 2025 makes it only worth $48 in actual sales. Okay, now this is a cool character. Think the Terminator. We're talking about Deathlock. This is before the movie from 1984, The Terminator, directed by James Cameron and written by James Cameron. But you had this cyborg Deathlock in Marvel Comics. This cover art was by Rich Buckler, who's new to the roster, so let me tell you a little bit about him. Rich Buckler was born February 6, 1949 in Detroit, Michigan. It's either New York or Michigan. I don't get it with Marvel talent back in the day. He sadly passed away at the age of 68 on May 19, 2017. But he did this cover art, and this comic was released on March 23, 1976, talking about issue 46 of Marvel Team Up. The inkers of this cover over Rich Buckler's pencils were Mike Esposito and Irv Wantanbe. Okay. The story was titled by writer Bill Mantlo, Future Shock Part 2, Am I or Have I Ever Been? Art by Sal Buscema, inks by Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt once again. A Spider-Man versus Deathlock team up. Hurtling through time and space, Spider-Man finds himself in the year 1990, only 15 years ahead of his own time. There, he meets a cyborg from the future who has sworn revenge against a man he calls Riker. Ooh, wow. After an attack from the Cubists, like Cube Steak or a Rubik's Cube from Cubists, Spider-Man asks Deathlock to help him return to his familiar past of 1976. Man, you got to love Deathlock, the pre-Terminator Terminator. Now, also, by the way, before the Terminator movie of 84 and before this comic book, there was an Outer Limits episode from 1964 titled Soldier, which originally aired on Saturday, September 19th, 1964. It was the season 2 premiere on ABC TV. That was a Saturday night, as I just said. The Outer Limits originally in season 1 was on Monday night at 8 p.m., and it did very well in the ratings. I don't know why ABC moved it to Saturday night. It killed the ratings of the show. At any rate, an actor named Michael Ansara, who at the time was married to Barbara Eden from I Dream of Jeannie, he played the cyborg. Okay, I digress. So I don't want you to think that Cyborg, I'm saying, was so original that James Cameron took the idea from the Terminator, because you had cyborgs and you had this concept of an exterminator, a robotic exterminator from the future going to the past to right a wrong many times, especially in science fiction novels. Ray Bradbury and the like. It was written by George Clayton Johnson, if I'm not mistaken. Many classic sci-fi novelists wrote about that theme and that character. All right, so I'm starting to lose my voice. This comic book, let's see, 18 sold in 2025, back in 2025 with a 9.6 grade. So the average is $80. All right, let's go on to Marvel Team Up, issue number 47. Pictured right there. There's the ever-loving Thing and Spider-Man. Spider-Man, why do I have a lisp all of a sudden? Yes, Spider-Man teamed up with Dr. Doom, Joe. That's right. All right, so some information about this issue. This was released to the public on Tuesday, April 27, 1976. Cover art was by Gil Kane and Joe Sinnott. The writer was Bill Mantlo. The pencils was black artist Ron Wilson with inks by Dan Atkins. The story is titled, I Have to Fight the Basilisk. And this story was continued from Marvel 2-in-1, issue number 17. And this is part 2 of a Thing and Spider-Man crossover battle against the Basilisk. Value of this book is $39 with 5 sold at auction in 2025 with a 9.6 grade. Okay. Issue 48 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, May 25th, 1976. That was a year before Star Wars was released in movie theaters, but it was in production at that point in time. Why do I say that? I don't know, but it's true. There's the cover. And that's not a bad cover, and this actually is a key book. We're going to get back to what Key Collector Comics said about this book. All right, the cover artist was John Romita Sr., pencils and inks. The interior story written by Bill Mantlo. The pencils on the interior by Sal Buscema. The inkers were, again, Mike Esposito and Dave Hunt. They were a dream team in their own right for Marvel Team Up. The story was titled A Fine Night for Dying. Bombs away! Join in with Spider-Man and Iron Man when Captain Jean DeWolf needs help tracking down the source of a bombing in Stark International's fuel tank. This is a key book because it's the first appearance of a character named Wraith, W-R-A-I-T-H, Wraith. And it's also the first appearance of Jean DeWolf, who is Wraith's sister. Value of this book, $225 with 1 sold with a 9.6 graded auction in November 2025. All right, here comes Marvel Team Up issue 49. I like this cover art right there, where Iron Man is choking out Spider-Man. That's pretty cool. And that cover art was by one of my favorites, John Romita Sr., Aubrey Bradford, and Irv Wantambe. Okay, and the story was written by Bill Mantlo. Pencil art on the inside by Sal Buscema, Mike Esposito, and Dave Hunt. The story is titled Madness is All in the Mind. Will the power of the Wraith prevail? Spider-Man and Iron Man may have met their match. Meanwhile, Jean discovers that she and Wraith may have something unexpected in common. So the value of this book is only $55 going into 2026. Going into 2026, easy for me to say, with 6 sold at auctions with a 9.6 grade. Okay, now here is issue 50 of Marvel Team Up. Am I going to stop at 50? I may stop at 53 because I want to show John Byrne. I didn't lie to you guys and gals, but there's issue number 50 of Marvel Team Up from July 27th, 1976. Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. The cover artist is Gil Kane, Dan Atkins, and Irv Wantambe. The story is written by Bill Mantlo, pencil art by John Buscema, Mike Esposito, and Dave Hunt. The story synopsis is this. The story is titled The Mystery of the Wraith. Doctor Strange joins Spider-Man, Jean DeWolf, and Iron Man in a quest to solve the identity of the Wraith. There were 14 sold at auction with a 9.6 grade on GoCollect.com, so that makes the book worth $75 with a grade of 9.6. Okay, here is issue 51. I'm going to go on just a little bit further. There's issue 51 because we're getting into some really cool books, and I have a really key issue coming up that I just adore of this title. So let's just keep going a little bit further. Okay. Number 51, released August 24th, 1976, with cover art by Gil Kane, Mike Esposito, and Irv Wantambe. Issue 51 of Marvel Team Up. The story is written by Bill Mantlo, again with artwork by Sal Buscema on the pencils, Mike Esposito, and Dave Hunt on the inks. The title of the story is The Trial of the Wraith. Spider-Man, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Jean DeWolf take part in the trial of Brian and Philip DeWolf. Value of this book, with 10 sold, with a 9.6 grade at auctions, is $80. Okay, now here is a book, one of the first books I ever got. This is the first Marvel comic book I ever got as a kid. My mom bought this for me. This was released originally on September 21st, 1976. It's issue 52 of Marvel Team Up. So it has personal significance with me. I have 2 copies of it. That's my best copy. And it's Spider-Man and Captain America. I read this book to death. I lost the cover. I read it so many times. I even drew eyeballs in Spider-Man's eyes on splash page 1. I'm not going to dig that out. I think I still have it in the box. Let me just see real quick if I still have that. I do not. I don't know what happened to the coverless version that I drew. Anyway, there's that book. Let me tell you about it, from September 1976. That was a good point in time, by the way. A lot of great television shows were airing, like the great Fembot crossovers of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman were going on. Great episode of Little House on the Prairie, Bunny, where Laura Ingalls Wilder pushes evil Nellie into the ravine in her wheelchair because Nellie was faking that she had temporary paralysis and was abusing Laura Ingalls Wilder. That's one of my favorite episodes of Little House on the Prairie from season 3 of that classic program, I believe. Yeah. So anyway, there was a lot going on. Charlie's Angels made its debut at that point in time as a weekly series on ABC. In terms of television, great music, Bay City Rollers, wasn't it? S-A-T-U-Y, T-U-Y, night, S-A-T-U-Y, T-U-Y, night. Dancing with the rock and roll Saturday night. Anyway, or was that 1975? Someone look it up in the chat. Let me know. But I remember that song going strong as a little kid back then at the roller rinks. Man. Anyway, I digress. So anyway, this issue was released on Tuesday, September 21st, 76. I know I already said that. The first Marvel comic I ever got as a kid, along with that DC book I showed earlier around that same time. The cover art was by Al Milgrom, Frank Hayakoya, doing the inks of Al Milgrom's pencils. The story is written by Gary or Jerry. It's spelled with a G. I'll say Jerry Conway. Pencil art by Sal Buscema, Mike Esposito, and Dave Hunt. Yet again, the story was titled Danger, Demon on a Rampage. And here's the plot. A demonic creature comes to Earth and wreaks havoc in the city. Steve Rogers, otherwise known as Captain America, throws his mighty shield, plus a collection of allies, must figure out what to do next. Value of this book is only $60, with 12 sold historically with a 9.6 grade at auction. Oh, now we're going to go to a pretty good key. This is Annual 1 from Tuesday, October 19th, 1976. And it's right here. This teams up Spider-Man and the X-Men. This is pretty effing cool, this book. All right, let me tell you about it. This is the first of 7 double-sized specials published once a year. The next time you had an annual after this 1976 special was in 1979, a few years later. And then in 1979, it was every year until 1984 when Marvel Team Up Annual 7 was released to the public. So this is the first one, and then there wasn't another one for about 3 years. Okay, the cover art was by new to the title Marvel Team Up, Dave Cockrum, who was an X-Men illustrator primarily before John Byrne took over from Dave Cockrum, and then Dave Cockrum returned to X-Men after John Byrne left after issue 143 of X-Men. John Byrne drew X-Men from issue 108 to 143. Why am I mentioning that? It's going to come up with the very next issue. You'll see why. But this issue, this is Annual 1, drawn by Dave Cockrum. Now, we're going to get to something in a little bit when I get to issue 77 of Marvel Team Up in part 2 of Marvel Team Up Every Issue Ever Made. Dave Cockrum redesigned Ms. Marvel's costume, and it was extremely sexy. I actually almost got aroused by a drawing by a dude. You'll see later. I know it sounds very weird. It is weird. Okay, but Dave Cockrum was born David Emmett Cockrum on November 11th, 1943 in Pendleton, Oregon. He sadly passed away way back on November 26th, 2006 in Belton, South Carolina at the age of 63. But this story is titled Lords of Light and Darkness, written by Bill Mantlo with pencil interior art by Sal Buscema, inked by Mike Esposito. Here's what the story is about. Government agent Stephen Marchesi has come to the Nest, a secret government nuclear testing facility located in the Mesa region of Nevada, where a team of scientists are working hard. It said is working hard at marvelfandom.com. Proper grammar, are working hard. Where a team of scientists are working hard to try and find a solution to the world's dwindling energy resources by finding alternate energy sources. Among the scientists are Brian Mann, a nuclear physicist in charge, Vic Norman, a biophysicist, Jan Marshall, an electrical engineer, Karen Lee, a geologist, and Marchie's ex-wife, and then Si Fan Chung, an astronomer and Karen's new lover, Martin Aronson, a radiation expert, and Randy Tate, the project overseer and former flight attendant. As they are testing out a new experimental form of radioactive energy dubbed the Nila pile, a sudden earthquake disrupts the experiment, shattering the containment glass and causing an explosion, seemingly killing everyone as the facility explodes in a massive nuclear explosion. The project was canceled by the government shortly thereafter. Months later, a Boeing 747-474, it says 474. I've never heard of a Boeing 7. Have you heard of a Boeing 474? Isn't it a 747? I'm going to self-correct if I'm wrong. Shoot me, slap me, whatever. Months later, a Boeing 747, not 474, is flying over the Arizona desert on its way to the International Conference on Man-Made Mutations. Aboard the plane are noted scientists Sir Lionel, Dr. Fernese, Dr. Mishkin, and the outspoken Senator Turner. Turner is in a fury, not only because a Soviet, Dr. Mishkin, is aboard the plane, but also because accompanying Professor Charles Xavier, the leader of the X-Men, are his students, who managed to get a free flight on Reed Richards' say-so and approval. Professor Xavier defends his students' presence aboard the plane to all gathered there, including Peter Parker, otherwise known as Spider-Man, who has been selected by Sir Lionel to cover the story for the Daily Bugle, the newspaper he's a photographer for, due to Parker's background as a physics student. Things become heated when Wolverine begins to pick a fight with the senator. However, things get hairier. Not literally, that's figuratively. When they fly through a dark cloud and suddenly they are attacked by the robots that once defended the Nest. All right, so here are some key facts about Marvel Team Up Annual 1. It's the first team up between Spider-Man and the new X-Men team because he encountered them in the 1960s in an early X-Men issue. It's also the first meeting of Wolverine and Spider-Man. Spider-Man had previously met Nightcrawler, one of the new X-Men. And it's the second appearance ever of Jean Grey as the Phoenix, who first appeared in X-Men issue number 101, which was also drawn by Dave Cockrum on the pencil side. The value of this book, unofficially, according to Key Collector, is $140 raw, non-scientific value, but the official graded value of a 9.6 copy, according to 5 actual recent auction sales back in 2025, is $250. There you have it. Now here comes Marvel Team Up issue 53. I love this issue because it marks the debut of art by the great John Byrne. And it teamed up Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk once again. Let's see how long I've gone here. All right, 2.5 hours. Unbelievable. I'll try to go 3. All right, so let's see. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this book. I love this comic book. It is a key. All right. Marvel Team Up 53 was released on Tuesday, October 26th, 1976. Cover art by Dave Cockrum, John Romita Sr., and Danny Crespi. The writer of the story is Bill Mantlo, with pencil art by The great John Byrne. I think he's probably my favorite comic book artist of all time, along with Neil Adams. It's a tie. Now, no disrespect to Jack King Kirby or Steve Ditko. They're great as well. I think Jack Kirby's a little bit better than Steve Ditko. But really, I think John Byrne and Neil Adams took comic book art to a whole nother level. So anyway, John Byrne made his appearance. This is like one of his first Marvel comics he drew. He was with Charlton Comic Books previously. He drew Space 1999 as well as Doomsday +1 for that publisher, Charlton Comic Books. So he came to Marvel, and this is before he drew X-Men. But the story in this book is titled Nightmare in New Mexico. Spider-Man, along with Banshee, one of the X-Men, find themselves in a secret town, Liberty, New Mexico, to cover the impending fight between Hulk and a character named Wood God. Spider-Man's demand for answers suddenly get him caught in between the battle. Will he come out unscathed? The story continues in the next issue. So, here's why it's a key. As I said, this is the first artwork on the X-Men by John Byrne. I'm going to show you a photo I took from this very issue of a beautiful double truck. There's the first time John Byrne drew the X-Men from Marvel Team Up issue number 53. Check that out. Isn't that cool? I love that. Sorry, listeners. I'm just showing it for the viewers who are watching live or in the replay on the Nostalgic Podblast YouTube channel. Find the channel when you do a search and click the live tab, and you'll see 3 issues of Marvel Team Up, issue 1, issue 15, and issue 19 as the thumbnail. Click that, and I might have a new thumbnail if my producer feels like designing one. It's not necessary, but we're trying to improve the show together. So, anyway, that's the first artwork by John Byrne drawing the X-Men. So he became a regular monthly artist on the Uncanny X-Men just under a year after this was drawn, on Tuesday, September 20th, which is my father's birthday, September 20th, 1977, about a year later, with the release of X-Men issue 108. And I have that for you. I want to show you. Oh, I didn't upload it. I'm going to upload it right now. Bear with me. I want to show you the cover of X-Men issue 108. It is historically significant. Bam, there it is, and it's coming up. It's coming up like a flower. Here it is, coming up. There's X-Men 108, the first John Byrne issue. And at that time, X-Men was bi-monthly, and then it became monthly, just like Marvel Team Up did eventually, and Daredevil and some other titles as well. But there is John Byrne's first issue. But getting back to the topic at hand, there's his first artwork of X-Men. So we're going to move on to the next issue, and we're going to wrap the show. I promise. We're only going to do a few more issues, and I'll wrap the show. This predates almost by a year. John Byrne taking over the X-Men from Dave Cockrum as the regular penciler on that title. And they were a great team. John Byrne and Chris Claremont were a great team on X-Men and Marvel Team Up. There were more than people realize, more issues that John Byrne and Chris Claremont did of Marvel Team Up than people think. It's a very undervalued set of issues that they did together. I think eventually history will catch up and these books will be worth what they should be worth. But let's talk about this issue right here. Unofficial value of Marvel Team Up 53, according to Key Collector, unscientifically is $30, but graded 9.6 copies sell for $138 in 2025. There were 8 recent auction sales in 2025, documented on Go Collect. So the fair market value average is $138. This is a grossly undervalued comic book. So let's talk about the next issue, the continuation of the story, issue 54 of Marvel Team Up from November 23rd, 1976. And I like this cover. I like the use of yellow in comic books. It looks pretty cool to me. And there it is. Now, who do you think drew that cover? Anyone who's been watching like Joe from the beginning, who do you think was that cover artist? Well, it was Gil Kane with inks by Mike Esposito and Irv Wantambe. The story is written by Bill Mantlo with pencil art by John Byrne with inks by Mike Esposito. The story was titled Spider in the Middle. Spider-Man is caught in the middle between the Hulk and Wood God. And both are spoiling for a fight with the wall crawler. However, the soldiers on site have other ideas in mind, and when Spider-Man jumps out of the way, they ensnare both the Hulk and Wood God in an electrified net that contracts the more they struggle. The value of this book is $80 with 20 sold with a 9.6 graded auctions. either online or in person. So let's move on to issue 55 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, December 21st, 1976. And this is a cool cover with Adam Warlock and Spider-Man. Cover art was by Dave Cockrum and Danny Crespi. The story is written by Bill Mantlo. The pencil art was by John Byrne. The inks by Dave Hunt. The story is titled Spider, Spider on the Moon. Spider-Man in space. Spider-Man has powers aplenty, but much like us, he cannot breathe in space. This may be his demise unless Adam Warlock swoops in for the rescue. What cosmic team-up awaits? This is a key because it's the first appearance of the Power Gem. It's the first appearance of the Time Gem and the first appearance of Gardner, the Elder of the Universe. The unofficial graded value is only $12 according to Key Collector. I don't believe it. The official value is $112. There were two 9.6s at auction sales in 2025. Okay, now let's go on to issue 56 of Marvel Team Up from Tuesday, January 26, 1977, with cover art by John Romita. It's right here. And there's Daredevil and Spider-Man taking on Electro. The inker of the cover of John Romita's art was Frank Hayakoya and Danny Crespi. Those are the inkers. Stories written by Bill Mantlo. Pencil interior artwork by Sal Buscema. The inker of the inside was Dave Hunt. The story is this. The story was titled Double Danger at the Daily Bugle. While on patrol, Daredevil detects the supervillain known as the Blizzard attacking the Daily Bugle newspaper delivery truck. Daredevil attempts to stop the crook, but the Blizzard manages to make his escape. Value of this book is $100 with 9 sold at 9.6 with that grade. All right. Here comes issue 57 of Marvel Team Up. Kind of a cool cover with the Silver Samurai. Is Spider-Man and the Black Widow. Cover art by Dave Cockrum. This is a key, in my opinion. It's not listed online as a key, but it's the first time that Chris Claremont wrote for Marvel Team Up. Chris Claremont is one of my favorite comic book writers ever next to Stan Lee. His work on X-Men is legendary and Marvel Team Up. So underrated. So Chris Claremont was born November 25th, 1950 in London in the United Kingdom. He's 75 years of age as we're live. Now, the story in this comic book, all right, Spider-Man and the Black Widow must work together to fight the Silver Samurai. It is a fight of wits and strength as they battle their way through New York. Is the samurai only trying to defeat the superheroes, or did he come for something else? The value of this book is only $70, with 12 sold with a 9.6 grade at auctions. I still contend it's a key because it's the first issue written by Chris Claremont. All right, Marvel Team Up issue 58. Cover art by Al Milgram and Irv Wantambe. Released Tuesday, March 22nd, 1977. Let me show it to you. I'm going to change out the photo. I like this cover okay. There it is. Spider-Man and the Ghost Rider team up once again. The writer was Chris Claremont, his second issue writing for Marvel Team Up. He was writing for X-Men at this point in time, so he's writing for 2 Marvel comic books. Pencil art on the inside was Sal Buscema and Dave Cockrum, with inks by Pablo Marcus. New talent to Marvel Team Up. He was born March 31st, 1947 in Peru. He's 88 years of age, so keep going, my friend. That's great. The story was titled Panic on Pier 1. The cast and crew of the Stuntmaster television series has set up shooting in New York City for the latest episode. Among its crew is stuntman Johnny Blaze, otherwise known as Ghost Rider, who stands in for the Stuntmaster during the show. They happen to be shooting on the street that Peter Parker Spider-Man lives on, and he and Mary Jane Watson happen upon the scene and are asked by security to remain behind barriers as Johnny Blaze completes a new stunt. Johnny is performing the stunt until it is interfered with by the Trapster. Trivia: what was Trapster's original name? It was Paste Pot Pete. The Trapster, a Fantastic Four villain, prompting, because of his actions, Johnny to transform into the Ghost Rider and to try to save himself. As Mary Jane is injured during the stunt gone wild, Peter Parker slips away to change into Spider-Man when he uses his webbing to help stop the Ghost Rider from crashing and hurting anyone else. When the two heroes reunited, they are then attacked by the Trapster. Value of this book is $70 with 5 sold in 2025 with a 9.6 grade. Okay, Marvel Team Up issue 59. We're almost done, folks. When I run out of photos, we're going to stop the show. There's issue number 59. And I only have 4 more to go. 1, 2, after this. So we're going to wrap the show very shortly and do a part 2 of Marvel Team Up. Keep this under 3 hours. I already went too long. I'm really, really sorry. I'm sorry, but yet I'm not sorry because I'm a motor mouth and a hyperspaz when it comes to caffeine. There's issue number 59 with Spider-Man teaming up with the Yellow Jacket and the Wasp. This was released on Tuesday, April 26, 1977. The cover art was by Dave Cockrum. I need to stop because I can't even speak anymore. The cover art was by Dave Cockrum, Mike Esposito, see, I'm getting ahead of myself, and Danny Crespi. The writer was Chris Claremont. Pencil art by John Byrne. At last, the X-Men dream team of Byrne and Claremont unite to work together in this comic book, Marvel Team Up. At this point in time, these two geniuses co-create many delightful upcoming issues of Marvel Team Up, which actually cross over into X-Men. You have the first appearance of Arcade, who was an X-Men villain down the line, shortly after his first appearance in Marvel Team Up. We'll talk about it in part 2 of Marvel Team Up, every issue ever made, the Nostalgic Podblast. So the inside was drawn by John Byrne on the pencil side with inks by the great Dave Hunt. The story is titled, Some Say Spidey Will Die by Fire, Some Say by Ice. It's an all-insect team as Spidey joins forces with Yellow Jacket and the Wasp. But when one of the trio falls, will the other stay on the hero's path or go down a dark road of revenge? Value of this book, and it's listed as a non-key, but again, I'm throwing the bullshit flag on the field. Sorry, folks, family show. Throwing a yellow flag on the field because this is the first time that Chris Claremont and John Byrne teamed up for Marvel Team Up, and they collaborated on many more issues of Marvel Team Up thereafter. So I'm glad I could end part 1 on this note with this pairing. Let's see. There were 2 sold in 2025 with a 9.6 grade. That's the highest I can see at Go Collect for $110. So that's the fair market value of this book, according to Go Collect, $110. Should be more. This is criminally underrated. All right. Issue 60 of Marvel Team Up. This was released the day before Star Wars was released in limited release in theaters. This was released on Tuesday, May 24th, 1977. Star Wars was released on May 25th, 1977, a Wednesday, in limited release for a couple weeks before going wide in June, early June 77. But here comes the cover for issue 60. It's right there. Oh, hold on. I didn't mean to hit edit. There we go. Sorry, folks. I like this cover. A good action shot. That's a Super Skrull. Super Skrull has all the powers of the Fantastic Four. Issue, excuse me. I need to take a deep breath. Marvel Team Up issue 60 from Tuesday, May 24th, 77, had cover art, as you can see, by Al Milgrom. The inside was written by Chris Claremont with pencil artwork by John Byrne and inks by Dave Hunt. The story was titled A Matter of Love and Death. Spider-Man is joined by the Wasp to take down the thermodynamic villain who claims to have already laid waste to Yellow Jacket, her lover. The value of this book is only $65 because there were 5 sold with a 9.6 grade at auctions. Wow, that's pretty bad. I think that book is a lot better than that. Now, Marvel Team Up issue 61 was released on Tuesday, June 21st, 1977. And here it is on the screen. 2 more after this, folks. Okay, now that cover art is just okay. And the cover art was by Al Milgrom and Joe Sinnott. The story was written by Chris Claremont with interior art by John Byrne and Dave Hunt. The story is titled, Not All Thy Powers Can Save Thee. Spidey lends a web-slinging hand to the Human Torch after the hero is overcome by the Super Skrull. Value of this book, because it's non-keys, $50, with 10 sold with a 9.6 grade at auctions. Wow. Here comes issue 62 from Tuesday, July 26, 1977. Again, this is a show and tell of comic books, anyone who's listening. So it's a little bit visual. Sorry about that. I've done my best to make this audio friendly. All right, this is the team up of Spider-Man and Ms. Marvel. At this point in time, the original costume of Carol Danvers, Ms. Marvel, it looked like a throwback to Farrah Fawcett with her hair, you know, like girls back then, young ladies, like to have the winged hair like Farrah had. And this costume is not great. This is before the one I talked about earlier with issue 20 of Ms. Marvel, where Dave Cockrum redesigned it to the good. But that's the original one. And Chris Claremont wrote this story with art by John Byrne. So they're the dream team, as I've stated. Inks by Dave Hunt. The story is titled All This and the QE2. Carol Danvers as Ms. Marvel and Spider-Man uncover the source of the Super Skrull's remarkable power. And it's a far-out tale from outer space. Value of this book, $54, with 6 sold with a 9.6 graded auctions in 2025, which is the time of this live broadcast. It is almost December 2025 as we're live. All right, now here comes Marvel Team Up issue number 63. Let me show you that cover. It's right there. This is the last one we're going to talk about. And it's Spider-Man teaming up with Iron Fist. And then I'll get to the comments before we say goodnight. The cover art was by Dave Cockrum, Frank Giacoya, and Danny Crespi. The writer of the story was Chris Claremont, with interior art by John Byrne and Dave Hunt once again. The story is titled Night of the Dragon. The plot is this. The Steel Serpent has left a calling card for Iron Fist, and Peter Parker delivers the message. Spider-Man and Iron Fist team up against unimaginable evil. Will Misty Knight become a casualty in the process? Plus, what happens with Danny Rand? What happens when Danny Rand loses the power of the Iron Fist? Read the story to find out. It's only $100 value with 2 sold with a 9.6 grade at auction. At auction. Oh my God, I'm losing it. Take 2. We're live, folks. The official value of this book, the fair market value according to Go Collect, is $100 with 2 sold at auctions with a 9.6 grade at the time of this live stream and live broadcast. Okay, so I'm going to stop and we're almost halfway through the series. There's 150 issues of Marvel Team Up. We're going to stop at issue 63 in the interest of time because I've gone almost 3 hours. Let me make myself big, as they say. I'm going to delete that photo. Okay. I really appreciate everyone tuning in and bearing with my many errors. The show's going to get better as it goes along. Upcoming, we have our Christmas extravaganza and holiday extravaganza. So we're going to cover everything holidays. I didn't do a Thanksgiving show this year because I did one last year. And I appreciate everyone who tuned in. I want to thank also my producer for bearing with me. And Joe said, some of these characters I haven't even heard of. Yeah, I know. And Joe said, the issue with the Yellow Jacket and the Wasp is really buggy. That's like a dad joke. The sound is a little staticky. Oh, dear. That's too bad, but it cleared up. Well, thanks. I should have looked at the chat, and I could have maybe adjusted it. It's 7:47. I know. 474 Boeing? That was really weird. Okay. Let's see. And about the Bay City Rollers Saturday Night song, Joe Gutfeld of New York State said, I have a Bay City Rollers greatest hits on 8-track. You still do to this day? That's wild. And he made a little joke. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Oh, I thought you were talking about going to the can, like he was taking a leak or something. Okay. All right. Yeah, I miss Omar. You know, I think he's only on Facebook. I got to get the message to him. And we'll have Mikey back next time. And let's say a prayer that Mikey feels better really soon. He was a little under the weather. And thanks, by the way, for letting me know about the audio issues, good and bad. So I'm going to see if I have anything else here in the videos to show you before I sign off. Let's see here. I hope you had a really nice Thanksgiving season. Hope you have nice holidays coming up. And we will see you next time on the Nostalgic Podblast. And as I always say, don't let the dragons get you. We'll see you next time on the Nostalgic Podblast. We'll play my outro now. I haven't done this in a while.
get ready to rewind time. This is the Nostalgic Podblast. Let's go!
Part 2 will be coming up next time on the Podblast of Marvel Team Up.
We're taking